Folks, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We had to wait until Peter got his equipment set up, so sorry for the delay. My name is Kathy Barnard. I'm the chairman of the Wolfeboro Planning Board, and let me start by introducing the other members of the Planning Board, starting at my right, way down at the end, Brad Harriman, who's the Board of Selectmen's representative to the Planning Board. Next to Brad, Paul O'Brien, John Thurston, Mike Hodder, and to my left, Peter Goodwin, our new member, and Vaughn Dugan. And Matt Sullivan is sitting over at this end. Okay, we've had several items this evening. Let me just quickly describe the process that we'll be following. I'll read the item into the record. At that point in time, the applicant will have an opportunity to comment on the particular application and go through all of the details. Then after he's completed, Matt Sullivan will then give some comments from the planner's perspective. Planning board members can ask questions at any point in time. Once we've had those presentations, the planning board needs to determine if the application is complete. If it is, or if there are waivers requested, we need to consider granting waivers. And then we consider if the application is complete or not, generally it is complete. At that point in time, when they make a motion that the application is complete, and I can then open the public hearing, and that will be the opportunity for any member of the public to comment on the application. Once we've had all of the comments, we'll then see if planning board members have any further questions, and if not, we'll close the public. And generally, we try to deliberate on each application this evening if we have all the information that we need. So that's how we functioned. And so let me read into the record the first application. P&D Zimmerman Family Limited Partnership. This is the public hearing for a special use permit at 14 Pine Street, tax map 218-17, case 201707. Actually, this was on our agenda on April 4th, 2017, but it wasn't complete at that time. So we'll hear the presentation now, but let me first indicate that we've, at 6:30, planning board members, all of the members here that I just introduced, conducted a site walk of the subject property at 14 Pine Street. We were there with the applicant and property owner and representatives, and then some members of the public. And basically what we were there for was to kind of get a visual of where the buildings, where proposed buildings are going to be located, the entrance to the site, things of that nature. And I'm sorry if I cut a couple people off. We're not supposed to discuss the application. This is the opportunity to do that, so I was just trying to protect our process. So anyway, you'll all have an opportunity to comment at the appropriate time. Okay, why don't you come on up.
No, you may have to go without mic for that.
We already have this one?
This is actually an amended.
We've not seen this one.
Get an amended plan.
Lewis from Northwood Engineering. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm here with Paul Zimmerman, who is the applicant, and Randy Walker, both of whom may be assisting me.
That's yours. This is mine.
Thought I would just start out by describing to you some of the things that I just passed out, some of the supplemental material, and maybe just quickly walk through where we've been up through the sidewalk that we just had. That was a good idea. I'm glad that suggestion was made last week, so that people could be available for that on short notice. As you will recall, we were here last month and we had a site plan application and a special use permit application. The site plan application was before we had a public hearing. The special use permit application for the conservation overlay district was determined not to be complete, so we needed to submit some supplemental material, which we have done. Has had a chance to, I think, be reviewed by staff. In addition to that, we were able to meet with the Conservation Commission last month and talk to them about some of the concerns that they had with the original submittal, and then put together a revised set of plans that addressed a lot of the comments that were raised at last month's public hearing from the board and from a number of the public, as well as the town staff review and the engineering review from Ty and Bond. So we've had multiple conversations since last month, and some back and forth with the review engineer. We've prepared a comprehensive stormwater management report that was submitted to the review engineer, and they've had a chance to review that and comment on that. So we've done a lot of work since we were here the last month. I think we do believe, in my opinion, that we have a complete application for the special use permit, so we're certainly hopeful that the board will accept that as complete and open the public hearing on that. I did want to talk a little bit about that, but I was going to first go through the plans and describe to you some of the, just kind of the highlights of the revisions we made in the plans and the things that were discussed. I brought up at the last meeting and or in the review. That work?
Yep.
I won't start over. Let's see. So a couple of the things, I'm just going to hit on the highlights and maybe some other questions. I didn't want to go through every comment in detail. One of the questions that was brought up last month was relative to the dumpster location and where the...
Well, can you stick to the special use permit? Those are, yes, you know, we have to deal with the special use permit before we can go to the site plan. And
I'll jump right to that. Oh, okay.
okay, and
That work too? Oh,
and
louder.
then
Yep.
are these relevant to the
So
special use permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The two, I'll just switch boards here. So the two special use exhibits that I just passed out are these two, which were revised from the last time we were here. In addition to that, we've submitted supplemental information that goes through the criteria outlined in the ordinance for the special use permit. So there's two different reports we submitted, one dated April 10th and one dated April 27th, that you should have that talk about the criteria from the ordinance and refer to this plan. So I wanted to point out a couple changes that we made to this plan. Some of them are a result of comments regarding the site plan application. But this special use permit exhibit is intended to show the impacts to the wetland setback, or to the wetland, to the various wetland setbacks that we have in the ordinance. There's a 25-foot no disturbance buffer from the poorly drained soil. There's a 30-foot building setback from the poorly drained soil, and there's a 50-foot parking lot pavement setback. So this first sheet of those two sheets that I handed out is intended to show you in a color-coded manner the different impacts that we're proposing within those various setbacks. The green color is the proposed disturbed area within the setback, which we've identified as 2,330 square feet. The red
shaded area is the proposed buildings, the limit of the buildings and structures, which include some concrete pads behind the buildings. And that's a proposed 1,064 square feet of impact within the 30-foot setback. And we have a very little bit of pavement out here in front of the maintenance shed, which you may not be able to see on the half-size plan, but it's a little blue area right out here in the driveway, which is 20 square feet of pavement, which is within the 50-foot pavement setback. So those are the three items that are included in the special use permit application. And again, we looked at this when we were just out there at the site, and we've submitted a bunch of photographs that should be part of your application that I also have here that just kind of give you a visual depiction of what this area looks like and what this wetland is. The town regulations and the ordinance and the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District talk about two different type of wetlands, a very poorly drained wetland and a poorly drained wetland. We have two of those within the project site. A very poorly drained soil, which is very evident as the swamp or the marsh or the big wetland in the back of the property back here. But we also have this creeping line of poorly drained soil that we just looked at that's between this redevelopment area of the project and the adjacent property owned by Mr. Shannon. It's a mapped line of poorly drained soil. So it's really just that line right here along this common boundary that we're talking about with regards to this special use permit. We have no impacts proposed within the setbacks for the large wetland in the back. It's just this mapped wetland line right here, which is all disturbed area. As you could see when you were out there, the entire lot on Mr. Shannon's property is a developed gravel yard, and he's got boats and car storage out there and buildings. And on the subject parcel, it's a developed lot. It's a completely disturbed nature. So that is the buffer and the setbacks that we're talking about with regards to the special use permit, which is the main reason why we feel that the impacts that we're proposing are justified as a special use permit. When we start looking at what's existing out there, which is the second page of the material I handed out, or the exhibits there, this is intended to show the existing impacts out there. So again, the green shade is the existing disturbed area. That's predominantly a lawn area with some planted trees that exist within that 25-foot no disturbance buffer. And then the blue area is the existing pavement that falls within the 50-foot paved setback. There is a little portion of the existing building, the back corner of the building, that's shaded red, that falls within the 30-foot building setback. So if you compare those two exhibits, you can see what's existing out there versus what's proposed. And what we're doing is we are reducing the total impervious area within this redevelopment area of the parcel. We're significantly reducing the amount of pavement. If you can look between these two, there's 1,784 square feet of pavement out there right now within the 50-foot setback, and we're removing all but 20 square feet of that. So we're significantly reducing the amount of pavement that was within the setback to the buffer. So part of the special use permit application is proposing to remove over 1,700 square feet of pavement. We are adding building area within that buffer, but we're adding less building than we're removing paving, so we have a reduction of impervious area. In addition to that, in this area where we are removing pavement at the north end of the building, we're proposing a bioretention basin, which will collect runoff, stormwater runoff from this entire redevelopment area. The buildings and the pavement in front of the buildings and the driveway, all of that will drain into this bioretention basin, which will provide stormwater treatment of that runoff from that area, which doesn't exist today. Right now, there is no treatment of that runoff. If we were out there today, shortly before we were there, it was raining. You can see that water just drains down onto the existing parking lot and puddles up and eventually finds its way to the storm drain system on the site. So we're adding a level of treatment, we're proposing a level of stormwater treatment that doesn't exist out there today. In addition, We are pulling the building, keeping the building 15 feet away from the property line, which gives us an opportunity to provide a swale, a drainage swale in back of the units. So any roof runoff that's coming off of the buildings will be captured in a grass swale behind the buildings and will be directed up to this bioretention basin. So all of the runoff, stormwater runoff from this redevelopment area will go to that bioretention basin. So really that's providing a better level of protection and treatment of runoff than what exists today. So we view that as certainly a betterment of the existing condition when we start talking about the impacts to the wetland setbacks and buffers that are out there, is that this will be a better condition in terms of the stormwater from what exists today. So that's probably what I would talk about with regards to the special use permit. We did submit a letter from our wetland scientist in our office who was up here and did test pits out in the parking lot in the bioretention basin and took a look at the wetland and the functions and values of the wetland. We have consulted with Greg Howard, who's the original wetland scientist who mapped the wetlands on this piece of property back in 2008, 2009. So we've done a lot of research and reviewed the reports that were done back then, and feel that the proposed impacts that we're proposing within the setback will not have any negative effect on the wetland, if we want to call it that. I'll call it a poorly drained soil that is this little kind of ditch between the two properties here. In fact, we're providing an increased level of protection for that from the stormwater runoff that will be out there in this proposed condition. So the submitted material goes through that in a lot more detail. I'm happy to walk through that or maybe just answer any questions about it in order to help determine the completeness. But our feeling is that we have submitted the required information, certainly for that to be complete. Regarding the special use permit, I guess I'd stop there and take any questions you may have.
Okay, and questions?
I just have one. It seems to me that the area you're calling disturbed is the same in both diagrams?
Correct, yes. Yeah, I mean, that none of that area that's out there right now exists in a natural state. I mean, it's a lawn and a mowed area. I mean, it is disturbed, correct, yeah.
Given that the retention area is in a relatively undrained soil or poorly drained soils, how is that going to be effective in getting rid of that storm runoff?
Yeah, that's a good question. We did, and now we kind of skirt into the design of the basin. And in the site improvement plans, we have a detailed design for that basin with a stormwater management report that documents all the characteristics of that. There's an under drain in the bottom layer of the bioretention basin, so there will be an outlet for any collected water. The idea of the bioretention basin is it's filtering the stormwater, and there'll be an under drain a couple feet below the basin that will provide an outlet down into the existing system on site, storm drain system on site.
So you're going to be digging up the parking lot?
We'll have to trench into through the parking lot for that connection. Yep, that's part of the way that we can ensure that we do have positive drainage out of that basin because of that exact concern, the existing subsurface soils.
And if I could, in the same consideration in the back, I mean, the topology of that property runs downhill, doesn't it? And so how would water runoff go from that swale into that bioretention basis?
Yeah, there's a grading
I
plan.
mean,
Yep.
it goes like that. Here's the proposed building. It goes like that, and the bioretention basin is here. So how do you get it up there?
Yeah, so we have a grading plan. We submitted. It should be part of this set. And there's a swale. We have a 1 or 2 foot berm right near the property line, and then a swale. These buildings will be stepped, so they're stepping as they go down. Each one of these units. So it'll be that whole area will be graded, but there is a swale, like a 1 foot deep grassline swale that runs along the whole backside of the units to get down there. And it is shown on the grading. I believe it's sheet 3 in the set, 3 or 4. Yeah. So that's all the contours and the grades.
Just to be clear, the town's consulting engineer did conduct a review of the stormwater management plan, grading plan, and and the report that was prepared by North Point, and they found that they were largely favorable towards that. There are a few comments that need to be clarified tonight, but they were supportive of the approach being used.
Thank you.
What is the purpose of the bioretention basin?
The purpose is really to provide, this is a redevelopment site. It's considered a redevelopment in the town's stormwater management ordinance based on the fact that it's a developed area of the site, and we're providing a redevelopment on there. So we're required to comply to a certain degree with the current stormwater management regulations, which require treatment of stormwater runoff. So in this case, that bioretention basin is an approved, DES-approved mechanism, best management practice for providing treatment of stormwater runoff. So we've constructed or proposing to construct in accordance with details that are provided by the state for a bioretention basin. We have plantings in the basin. Part of the treatment is through the vegetative cover that will be in the basin that will provide some treatment, and then the rest of it is a filtered material. There's a couple feet of engineered soil in there that the stormwater will filter through. They'll provide another level of treatment. So the idea is that any of the drainage that's going into there will have a treatment device that it flows through before it then flows out into the storm drain and into the wetland or into Back Bay or wherever it's going to end up. So that's the intention of the bioretention basin.
That was my next question. Now you've explained the purpose of the bioretention basin. It's going to, the moisture of the water that runs off into the bioretention basin then is run off into where thereafter? Down a series of pipes and tubes, I suppose, into some other place? Where is the other place?
Yeah, on the grading plan, you can see there's a catch basin, a small area drain in the bioretention basin, and there'll be a small diameter pipe that runs through the parking lot to the catch basin out here in the parking lot.
And then eventually into that wetland?
Into the wetland, or this whole system here is, I mean, that's where the water flows right now from this whole area. It just goes down through the parking lot and gets there eventually. It goes into the wetland, and the wetland backs up and flows back into Back Bay, so it's all connected there hydraulically.
This bioretention basin treated runoff is going to eventually wind up in that wetland?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you all set? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think everything's been covered in pretty good detail. I just wanted to add, I spoke to the chair of the Conservation Commission. You'll see that no further comments were provided as part of your packets. However, he reiterated the comments made and included in the special use permit review that I completed, specifically addressing the potential contaminants entering the wetland as a result of snow storage and plowing. And I think that's something that needs to be considered by the board. I wanted to also reiterate the criteria that need to be considered here, and I'll just read those quickly, 1 through 3. No alternative location outside the wetland setback or buffer zone, or which has less detrimental impact on a wetland is feasible. These are the reasons for granting the permit. The proposed construction is essential to the productive use of other land which is not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District. And 3, design, construction, and maintenance methods will be such as to avoid or minimize detrimental impact upon the wetlands. Those are critical to consider as you make your decision here on granting the special use permit. And I hope that you have the April 27th letter from Mr. Lewis included in your packets. If not, I can pass this along. This specifically addresses those criteria in some good detail for your consideration. But beyond that, I think Mr. Lewis covered everything pretty well.
April 27th?
Correct. You have that?
Yeah, May 1.
It's in there.
So as we're digging through, point of information, are we addressing snow storage here, or are we addressing it in the next?
I think you can address it in both forums. In the event that this were to be recommended for approval, I think that it would be appropriate to add a note to the plan indicating that snow storage will not be done in the wetlands area and that plowing of snow will not be done into the wetlands area either. So I think it should be addressed here as well.
Is that among your conditions of approval?
It's not among the list I provided, but I actually made a note to add it should the board consider approval.
If we get that far, you'll be adding that.
Okay, did you
And just one other clarifying comment relative to the disturbed land shown on the plan. The disturbed area definition being used by Mr. Lewis is consistent with the way the ordinance speaks to disturbed land. So while it is a grassy lawn right now, technically it serves as disturbed land currently.
Okay, well, the Conservation Commission wasn't only concerned about the snow
Yep.
being plowed into the wetlands. They also raised some other concerns, and they said that they felt that the buffer impacts could be minimized or avoided by reducing the footprint of the structure or the number of units, which would also reduce the number of required parking spaces. Our special use section of the ordinance tells us that we need to send everything to conservation and then consider their comments. And so could you comment on what the Conservation Commission is suggesting?
Well, I think that that specific suggestion about reducing my take on this is, and I'll kind of a little bit reiterate what I said before. We have a reduction of over 1,700 square feet of paved area on here. And paved area is typically the impervious area that you're more concerned with as opposed to roof runoff. So I think what we're doing is
They're talking about the impacts to the buffer,
well,
that could be minimized or avoided.
right, yeah. I understand that. So I think that, the idea here is we're talking about, what I was going to say is we're talking about the buffer to this poorly drained wetland, poorly drained soil line, and everyone has seen what it is, I think. So we go back to the question of what are we trying to, what is the buffer we're trying to protect there? What is the buffer that exists today? And if we're proposing a building within that buffer, what is it that we're doing that's going to be detrimental to that buffer? And I mean, granted, the ordinance has a requirement for 25-foot no disturbance buffer. In this case, it's 100% of that's been disturbed already. So what we're proposing is to keep the building far enough away where we can have a diversion swale in the back and provide a reduction in the amount of pavement that's within the overall setback and provide a level of stormwater treatment that doesn't exist today. So when we look at holistically at this thing, I think we're saying that this is a better situation for that wetland that exists out there now than what's there today. So that would be the argument that we have, and we do have more of the building in the buffer, but less of the pavement. And the building is clean roof runoff that's being captured and directed to a bioretention swale. It's not draining into the wetland. So there'll be less runoff going into that wetland or that poorly drained ditch than does today. And we'll be treating all of the runoff that goes into there with less sanding in paved areas, which requires less snow storage. If there's pavement removal, we're reducing parking spaces from the site, so we have less need for all that stuff, and we're adding stormwater treatment that doesn't exist today. So I think to answer that question, I look at it holistically as the whole, that we're making the situation better, even though we are proposing to increase the square footage of buildings that are within the buffer.
And Madam Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
if I read the map, the plan correctly, in order to avoid buffer impacts, the applicant would have to reduce the number of units by 4, including the maintenance shed, and only put up 2 units. To minimize, you would be down to 3 or 4, perhaps, units as opposed to the 6 plus the maintenance shed that he's requesting. I'm not sure that the Conservation Commission's concern here is a realistic one on the ground.
Okay, but we still have to consider their comments. So for the 3 criteria that you have to meet, you just really spoke to the first one, no alternative location outside the wetland setback. That was, you just spoke to that. Mm-hmm. Okay. The proposed construction is essential to the productive use of other land which is not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District.
Yeah, I mean it's a very similar argument to this, and is that, what we wrote here is that the subject area of the site is adjacent to this mapped area of poorly drained soils on an adjacent developed lot. The proposed redevelopment of the subject area constitutes a betterment to the site, as an existing building will be removed and a new building constructed with increased setbacks from property lines. There will be a net reduction in impervious surface area on the subject parcel. Drainage improvements will be made, which will ensure that runoff from the subject parcel stays on the parcel and does not drain onto the adjacent property. And a new bioretention basin will be constructed that will treat stormwater runoff that is not currently treated. All these aspects of the redevelopment are betterments to the property that cannot be accomplished without the proposed impacts to the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District. So again, we're trying to, part of this is a betterment to the site that we can't do without impacting these setbacks.
Okay, and it seems that you could move the buildings over towards Center Street. You've got some sort of a buffer strip here that is adjacent to the other Zimmerman property. Was that considered? That would pretty much take you out of the setback areas.
Well, we have a strip of maybe 8 or 9 feet here you're talking
Right.
about. I mean,
If everything was moved
Yeah,
towards Center Street, wouldn't that pretty much take you out?
no, we'd still have an impact back here. We'd still be
But it
disturbed.
would be less of an impact.
So the trade-off would be, if there's a concern about the amount of impact back here, and then having more grass back there would be better. Then that's something that could be looked at. I think you're talking about pulling this over here and having a driveway curb cut that now crosses in front of another parcel, which is not desirable, and in my mind, keeping a separation from the driveway to the adjacent piece of property in terms of the whole planning aspect of it, it would be more critical than pulling that back just to keep the buildings outside of a wetland setback from what this wetland is. I mean, it always comes back to that argument. If we were talking about this wetland up here, I wouldn't be making the same argument. But
Okay, well, I was
Yeah.
looking at the first criteria.
yeah,
No alternative location.
yeah.
And there
There
seems
is an
that there
alternative.
may be.
There is an alternative.
Jeff, I know this has been discussed, but it's clear the two properties are owned by the same owner. Is there any willingness to do a boundary line adjustment to accommodate a shift of the building?
Well, the answer is, they're separate maps of, lots of records, so it's not something that's being discussed or wants to be proposed, to answer that question. And again, I would have to have some feedback as to the specific concerns about this. When we talk about the impacting, you can look on here and say, yeah, we could pull the building over. You'd have to pull it over, 10 or 12 feet, so you couldn't do it within the limits of the site. You'd have to encroach on the other property. But we'd still need to disturb the no-touch buffer and put a swale back there, so we'd still be here for a special use permit. We just wouldn't have the
Okay,
build.
but it would be less impact was,
Well, it would probably be the same overall amount of impact, because we want to berm up at the property line and collect all the runoff from there. We don't want the drainage to go onto the neighbor's property. So we'd have the same disturbance over here. It would just be more grass back there. And I'm not sure what the benefit of that is. I guess that's what I'm saying.
okay, all right, thank you.
The retention pond could be, or area could be made larger if it was moved 15 feet.
The retention pond would be made,
Make it bigger.
Pond would be, that area could be made larger by another 15 feet.
if you move the yeah, if you moved over 15 feet, but we have 7 or 8 feet to the property line. So we could pave, what you're talking about is paving right along the property line, is what that would be, and leaving no buffer between the property lines. So, I mean, what's feasible may be to move it over a couple feet or something, but, I'm just not sure what the value of doing that is.
Okay, all
Can I
right.
talk about
thank you.
snow storage?
Excuse me?
Can I talk about snow storage?
Yes, could you talk in the
No, I
microphone,
was just asking you
please?
first. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about the snow storage issue. Now, I probably didn't do this right, but I calculated that the little drive area there between the building and what you call snow storage area, that little line, it's 25 feet across. And I just did I looked at the boundary up here, and it was 121.53 feet, so I just did it this times that, and I came up with 3,000 square feet, is what that driveway area is, okay? Now, that snow storage area you got looks like it's about 4 feet across? And if it's 4 feet across at 121 feet, that's about 800 feet. How do you stuff 3,000 square feet of snow in a 400 square foot? How do you do that?
Well, you don't, not all the snow will go there. I mean, I
So
think
there's
that
other snows, you're gonna move the snow.
there are snow storage areas on the existing, this is part of the shopping plaza site, and I think that's one of the points that Matt raised, is there are areas on this site where snow is stored, and that's where this snow will be stored. You know, we're just trying to identify some areas here where there isn't landscaping, where they can store some snow. They can certainly plow down this road
Right.
and push snow off to the side.
Right.
As it gets excessive, it's gonna have to go back here onto the site where it goes today.
So I have two concerns, and you've addressed one of the two concerns, that every time you plow, you take out a little bit of the road, at least the way I do it. I mean, you lose a little bit, so I'm probably not the best plow person in the world. So that 25 foot is gonna go to 23, it's gonna go to 22. How are you gonna make sure that road stays at 25? Because it's awfully tight.
As opposed
Yeah,
to anywhere
I mean,
else.
I guess I don't know how to do this, but I guess my point would be, there shouldn't be snow storage on that other side. That snow should be picked up and moved all the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Or you're gonna make the road skinnier and skinnier.
That may be what happens. I mean, you know, I mean, it really depends on how much snow there is and when it snows. And
Well,
if
we
there's-
hope that it snows a lot.
If there's 3 inches of snow, my guess is they're gonna just plow and it's gonna go off the side of the road. And if it's a big snowstorm, you're right, they won't be able to plow it there. They'll have to move it back here, like they do the rest of the shopping plaza. I mean, I look at that and it's, you know, it's
I'm not trying to get you to write anything down you don't want to do, but I just have a concern that little driveway, you know, we heard earlier that people are just concerned that it's skinny. And that thing's going to get even skinnier with snow and ice and all that stuff that falls on us. And I just like to hear some words that tell us that that's not going to happen.
Okay, and let's do that when we get to the site plan.
Oh, okay, so I thought we were in, okay, thanks, I
No,
apologize.
that's it.
All right.
Okay, anything else on the
One
special use?
quick note of clarification on snow, not to cross over to site plan, but on the revised site plan, it specifically says that any snow storage that exceeds what's shown on the plan will be removed from the site. So I think that's critical to note as well.
Okay, okay. We've pretty much determined that the application is complete. And so would somebody be willing to make a motion to accept this application as complete?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion has been made
Seconded.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing, and this is the public hearing for the special use permit for the issues that we just talked about, intrusion into the buffer strip in the wetlands. So if anyone wants to comment on this, come on up, give us your name and your comments. Anyone? Okay.
Comes Gary.
My name is Gary Brockney, and my wife and I live on Pine Street, 19. I've already voiced my opinion, I guess. The other concern I have is construction equipment going in. Will it tie up Pine Street, and will it have complete access to travel through there while they're doing it? And where are they going to approach tearing the building down? Is it going to be from the side street?
Is that part of this? No.
And I'm just concerned about Pine Street being the small little street that it is, tying up traffic. You know, my business depends on traffic. So
Okay.
that's it.
Yes, all right, thank you.
Harry, we'll probably get to those sorts of questions in the second part of this application, the site plan review part. This part is just specifically for the special use permit,
Right.
the impact into the wetland buffer. So we'll get to your concern second round.
Okay, anyone want to comment on? Okay, planning board members. What are your thoughts?
If we were talking about an impact to buffer around a prime wetland or a significant wetland that has functions and values that are important to the processing of water in that particular area, I would be very concerned, but we know the area, we know the state of the wetland, it exists there now. We know this area has been built up, dug up, and built up again any number of times in the past several decades. I don't have any particular concerns with the impact into the wetland buffer on this application.
Okay, is everyone comfortable that the three criteria have been satisfied? No alternative location outside of the setback or buffer zone. Proposed construction is essential to the productive use of other land. All comfortable?
I was originally thinking that it could be moved over, but I think now I have to agree that it doesn't really serve any benefit. Sorry about this voice. It doesn't seem like it would improve the situation of the wetlands or the drainage if we push it over to the property line, so I think I've changed my mind on that.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? And you want to hear any conditions that Matt might have for us to consider?
Sure, absolutely. I'll review the conditions now. And just to point out, the two plans that were submitted tonight, the existing conditions and proposed conditions plan, I'll integrate those into potential conditions here. The first condition being the following plans as amended to the date of approval are hereby incorporated into this approval. Plan 1 will be the existing conditions plan dated May 1st, 2017. Plan 2 will be the proposed conditions plan dated May 1st, 2017. Plan 2 being the aerial exhibit dated April 4th, 2017. Plan 3 being the site photographs also dated April 4th, 2017. The applicant shall comply with the pre-construction siltation and erosion control measures and construction sequence as shown on the plan. An inspection by the town shall be required of siltation devices prior to construction. This approval is fully subject to the receipt of a Town of Wolfeboro site plan review approval and conditions imposed therein. The applicant shall be responsible for recording fees. All of the documentation submitted in the application package by the applicant and any requirements imposed by other agencies are part of this approval unless otherwise updated, revised, clarified in some manner, or superseded in full or in part. In case of conflicting information between documents, the most recent documentation and this notice herein shall be generally determining. Condition 8, the applicant shall be required to monument the edge of the wetlands in compliance with 175.9.1 wetlands boundary monumentation, which includes a delineation by a state of New Hampshire certified wetland scientist with markers placed at 50-foot intervals along the total wetland boundary following its contour. Care shall be taken to ensure that markers are placed with the appropriate spacing at points closest to any proposed or existing structure on the property. Costs shall be borne by the applicant or their successors in interest. Applicant shall be responsible for submitting a letter of certification and posting it to the Code Enforcement Office prior to the issuance of a building permit. And finally, snow storage is not to occur within the delineated wetlands on site.
Okay, thank you.
Question for the planner. Why did you omit number 6, the original number 6?
Thank you. Final plans to be certified and stamped by the original certified wetland scientist, being Mr. Greg Howard. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. And it does, we have considered the Conservation Commission's review of this application. I think the applicant has been before the Conservation Commission a couple times. The snow plowing, again, we'll talk more about that during the site plan. And I think that that issue can be addressed. We've also considered the criteria. We discussed an alternative location. It doesn't appear that the alternative location, the one moving the buildings toward Center Street, would accomplish a great deal in view of the fact that there's a significant planting area being being added here, and so I think that sort of offsets moving it further toward Center Street, so I think that we've addressed all the issues. Someone want to make a motion regarding this application?
Madam Chairman, I'll move to, that we vote to approve. It's a tax map, it's a special use permit for tax map 218-017, 14 Pine Street, applicant P&D Zimmerman Family Limited Partners of Wolfeboro Falls, with the conditions cited by reference, numbers 1 through 9. Numbers 1 through 9.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Thank you. The second part of this application, and this application, the site plan review was actually opened and continued on, it was opened April 4th, 2017, but let me read this into the record. P&D Zimmerman Family Limited Partnership at 14 Pine Street, tax map 218-17, tax case 201708, and this is a site plan review for multifamily housing. Okay, Mr. Lewis, you're going to go over, because you did go over quite a few of the items, and you're going to show us and tell us anything that you've changed.
Yeah, I'll try to.
Amended.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to be brief and just hit some of the highlights. We did have extensive review letter from your town engineer and a staff report from Matt, and a lot of those things we've addressed, and I have new letters back, a new report from Matt. So just kind of some of the highlights of things that I identified as particular concern. I started before talking about the dumpster. One of the concerns that was expressed at the last meeting was the plan we had for trash removal, or for the tenants of these 6 units to access dumpsters. And we had mentioned that the existing dumpsters on the commercial property are back here, and that led to some concerns about people walking across the parking lot and accessing those dumpsters, and it being a far walk and at night. So what we're proposing, what Mr. Zimmerman is proposing, is we do have this maintenance shed at the end of the building, which you can see in the perspective and on the plan, and we'll facilitate some trash bins within that maintenance shed that all the tenants will have access to. So they will just be bringing their trash down into this as if it's an extra garage, and they're keeping their trash in there. It'll be community bins. And then as part of the property maintenance, Mr. Zimmerman's crews will empty those and either bring them to the dumpsters or probably dispose of that trash as needed on a regular basis. So that should eliminate, or hopefully eliminate, the concerns about people living here and having to walk over there for the dumpster. So that was one item. One of the other items that was discussed was Mr. Shannon had some concerns about the drainage on his property. I know that came up when we were out at the site walk this afternoon. And the one thing we're doing, which we've already talked about tonight, is providing the swale behind the building, which was not part of the original approval, but was meeting, but was discussed last month, and we have incorporated that. So what we can say for sure is that any stormwater generated from this redevelopment site will be directed back to the bioretention basin and will not go across the property line onto Mr. Shannon's property. I couldn't comment to you a whole lot on the other problems that Mr. Shannon's experiencing out there, although after everyone left today, I did walk up the road here, and if you happen to drive back by there, you'll see that there's a catch basin on the side of the road, right in the driveway entrance to the self-storage facility. That's very clear. It looks like that's functioning, but several feet downhill from that, a few feet off the road, right here near the corner of Mr. Shannon's property and structure, is another catch basin that is, you wouldn't know it was there. It's got leaves and 3 inches of sand on top of it, and clearly the water coming out Pine Street is not getting into that basin and going wherever it goes, or coming down the driveway. So it doesn't surprise me that if there's some problems he's having, it's because of a plugged catch basin right there. I would encourage somebody to get out there and just clean that out, and that'll probably solve some of the immediate concerns. I don't see any reason, from my opinion, to think that anything that was happening on the self-storage lot, which is well back and behind, is causing any problems here. So my best guess is that it's runoff from Pine Street. I just throw that out there. But certainly anything we're doing here, I'm proposing, will not have an effect on his property. Question?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Shout, I suppose, or something. The rubbish containers inside the maintenance shed, are they going to be enclosed? So the public will not see them?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You said they're going to be picked up by Mr. Zimmerman's maintenance crew on a regular basis. What does that mean? How frequently?
Well, it would depend on how many bins he puts in there and how often they get used. So to some degree, that would have to be figured out as they go along. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that'd be the way I expect to approach it. If there's one person living in there, then it would be potentially weekly. You don't want the trash to be in there longer than that.
Yes, that's my point.
Right. So, I mean, if he had one bin in there and it needed to be removed every 3 days, then that's what would happen. But if he has 2 or 3 bins in there and it can last a week, then it would be weekly.
Will facilities be provided for recycling? Will this just be picked up and dumped into a landfill someplace wherever it goes?
That's a good question. Recycling? Yes. I'm getting a nod for recycling.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes,
A question.
another question.
Where in your plan are the propane tanks and the air conditioner units?
Jumping ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's
I didn't mean to do that. I
Propane.
apologize.
So one of the questions was propane tanks. What we were doing, we were originally looking at burying a propane tank, and we realized that there is a setback from the wetlands for that. It becomes impractical to do that. So Mr. Zimmerman has been talking with the local propane supplier, and the idea is to provide individual above-ground units behind the buildings for each unit. So we have a concrete pad for each unit for propane, and a separate pad for an air condenser unit for each pad that will have to be, properly separated in the back.
But it's not on any of these plans right now.
It is on the plans, yes. Yeah. We've noted it on the site plan sheet as just a concrete pads behind the building. We've noted it as a note that points them out on the site plan sheet, and I think added a note. I have to flip to my site plan here.
Yeah,
Note 16 on the site plan, which is sheet 2.
Back up. 1, 2.
And then you can see them depicted on the plan behind the building. You see that?
Not me.
That has the latest.
And this one, he says in the front, 3x3.
See note 16.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, all set with that?
Thank you.
So the next thing on my list, again, we already talked about this, was a bioretention basin. I talked about it in a lot of detail, so I don't think I need to elaborate. That was one of the concerns. And we believe that we have a fully compliant drainage design that meets the requirements of the stormwater management ordinance for the treatment requirements for redevelopment site. And I know that the review engineer has reviewed that, and I don't believe that they have any remaining concerns or comments on that. So as far as we're concerned, we have a plan that complies with the regulations for drainage and treatment. And then I was going to talk about the driveway. One of the concerns at the last meeting, and I think there may be people here tonight to better talk about this, is just the driveway and the location and the Pine Street and some of the access. We've got a good look at it when we're out there tonight as to where this building is going to be relative to the existing building, so you can see how far it is set back from the existing road. I was standing out there right where we've now proposed a stop sign. If you noticed out there tonight, there is no stop or traffic control out there, so we are proposing a stop sign there, which will provide some control of that driveway. But if you stand there at where that stop sign is located, which would be about 10 to 15 feet back from the edge of the pavement on Pine Street, and just look up and down the street, you have very good sight distance there. I walked up, the reason I saw the catch basin up here was because I paced off the sight distance after we were leaving the site, and there's about 400 feet of sight distance looking up Pine Street. So that's equivalent to any DOT driveway entrance on a road with a much higher speed limit than this. So, I mean, if people are whipping down that hill, they got to be going 70 miles an hour or over for you to not have enough sight distance to see them coming down. And certainly the other direction, you can see all the way down to the intersection. So I don't see sight distance out here as being an issue. I think we are better defining this driveway as we are closing off and adding some grass area in here. We did look, Mr. Zimmer and I looked, and I know this is one of the comments that Matt had, was any landscaping that we're putting out there, that we make sure that it's not going to affect sight distance. And as I stood here and looked in the other direction, the only thing that does get in the line of sight at all is some trees that are out there. So we were looking at we were proposing one maple tree here, and what I would suggest is that we probably look at not putting that tree there and putting a lower bush there. We have a couple other 2 foot to 3 foot bushes, and we just replace that tree with a bush. So if we do advance this plan, that would be one thing I propose to change from tonight, just to make sure we don't have any sight distance issues out there. And I think that will take care of that issue as far as I'm concerned. As I mentioned, we did do the stop control. We are narrowing up the driveway pavement from what's there. We are moving the building back. Granted, it's only about a foot, but there will be no porch on the front of the building like there is on the existing building. So I think in all those ways, this is going to be a better plan than what's there right now. The parking space in the garage will be set back, albeit just a little bit, but it's certainly a little better than what's there now. Today, there won't be cars parked out here in front of the driveway. We're trying to make an effort to make sure that people don't park in front of those garages, but we are giving them enough room for when they do back out of the garage, they have enough room before they get into the garage, before they get into the driveway to see, and so we're doing the best we can to address any safety concerns that are out there.
I did not, last time you addressed this board, have any questions whatsoever regarding sight distance, because there is good sight distance on Pine Street from that driveway entrance. My concerns then are the same as my concerns are today, and that's the width of this driveway. It's 22 feet at its mouth, as you told us this evening,
Right.
and 25 feet elsewhere in the driveway.
Up at the car wash end.
Correct. You propose to have two-way traffic there,
Correct.
along with cars backing out of garages into your 22 to 25-foot width, having to progress just about the entire length of a car, 11 feet or so, into that roadway before they're able to see if anyone is coming one way or the other. You may have pedestrians coming out from their front doors. I'm assuming the front doors of the building are going to be on that side of the structure, walking towards the stores, walking towards the liquor store. They're probably not going to drive. An awful lot of traffic there. You've also got snow storage in the wintertime in that same 25-foot width, which is going to be using up driveway space as well. So you've got two-way traffic, cars backing out of driveways, you blind until they get halfway out into the width. It seems to me this is simply not wide enough for a safe purpose for the structure.
Is there any guidance that we could, is there any guidance anywhere that says, if you're going to have a two-way path that's going to have traffic in it, it should be a minimum of X feet?
This meets that standard.
It does?
175, 133 calls for a 22-foot maneuvering aisle and a 90-degree parking structure. Coming out of a driveway is 90 degrees. Coming out of a garage, rather, is 90 degrees to me. You need a 22-foot maneuvering aisle. He's got 22 feet, but he's maneuvering into two-way traffic. Is that still covered?
I believe so.
Well, we need
This
to
is-
know.
This is not, and
Can I-
again, this is a parking area. This is not a
This is-
street or road.
But as long as the owner of this road allows the public to progress across it, and he has been doing that for years, because I've been using that road for years, along with everybody else in town, I wonder if the public has got a preemptive right to use this road as a driveway in and out of the back. And even if they don't, we have been and continue to use that road for that purpose to get into the liquor store from Pine Street. Okay? Yet you're putting in garages with people backing out into a 22 to 25-foot width. When our
You're gonna deliver mail on
regulations
this
suggest
street?
That's about all you have for a 90-degree turn radius.
So my answer to that would be, this is a very typical situation. I mean, you're pointing out an observation here that we have a connection between a shopping plaza and Pine Street, but you're pointing out a separate observation that has to do with the width of the drive. So if I can kind of detach those for a second. 'Cause
In my opinion, they can't be detached. The whole purpose of bringing the issue up is a matter of public safety. And I have a solution to offer if you'd like it later.
Well, my comments on that would be this. It all comes down to what the volume of traffic is going through here and how fast people are going through here. And we propose these. I don't know what there are in the town of Wolfeboro for similar style drive-under townhouse-style units. But ideally, when you're doing these, you don't want to have parking spaces in front of them because then people have stacked parking spaces. But you do need to give them room to pull in and out. So you're right, they're not backing blindly out into the driveway, but they're backing out of a garage. So if you were in a parking space on there's parking spaces right here, right now, in these same locations. If you were parked in my car and I had a Suburban parked on the other side of me, I don't know how that's any different. I have to back out into the parking space even further. I'm immediately backing out into the parking
Very
space.
slowly, sure, but you're having people
Now-
back out of garages.
No, now I'm giving them 11 feet before they get into that lane.
Right.
Whereas if there were two cars parked beside me, I'd be giving them 0 feet. I'd have to back way out. And the idea of that 11 feet is, yeah, you're giving them 11 feet to back out so that you're trying to get them outside of the garage so they have visibility before they're turning and backing into the lane. So and we don't want to give them more than 11 feet because we don't want them parking there. So this is a typical way you would design this. You always are going to have a 22-foot or 24-foot minimum drive aisle because that's what you need to, not for two-way, but that's what you need to back out and actually get out there.
Our
So
regulations say
wherever this project is located, that's what this could be a very similar setup. Now, we have projects where we have 150, 200 townhouse units, and there's a drive that goes all throughout here, and if you're at the beginning end of the road, then you have more traffic than the guy at the end of the road, and you have the same situation. You could be backing out. So it all comes down to what is the traffic coming through here. The concerns that were expressed were there's people whipping down the street and coming in here and flying through here, and there may be, and I have no idea what the traffic is out there. The only times I've been out there were nights like tonight where there was nobody that came in and out there other than the 12 of us. So I don't see any concern. So I'm relying on the public, and I'm relying on Mr. Zimmerman, the folks that he has, to say, what is other accidents out here in this existing condition, other issues with the parking spaces that are there, because I don't see the garage units as being worse than what's there. I see it as being better because we're providing them 11 feet before they have to back out into the drive aisle. Right now, there's none.
I have some safety misgivings here, but I have to yield to the planner. If regulations don't provide anything other than this, and that's all I can do is to acquiesce.
The regulations provide an 18-foot minimum for a two-way, and on top of that, they provide the 22-foot maneuvering aisle for backing out from a 90-degree space. In no situation that I'm familiar with are those compounded into one measurement of 40 feet, basically. And I don't think the ordinance supports it. So I think
No, I'm not suggesting that it should. I'm suggesting that the ordinance allows those widths in anticipation of public safety needs. That this particular design, in my opinion, causes me some misgiving. But then if I have no ordinance on which to hang an objection, then I can't make one.
And I don't think you do have any language to hang an objection on. And I would offer, and not to be, not issuing any support for the application, I think that the 11-foot buffer area essentially that's being provided by the bollards essentially, or separation that's being shown on the plan, I think that is a good protection to ensure that when folks are backing out of those parking spaces, they're able to gain some sight distance at least when entering into that 25-foot, 26-foot travel way.
My solution to the problem was to suggest that a boundary line adjustment perhaps be made between the two pieces of property, and a swatch of maybe 25 feet maximum be taken from 17-1, given to 17 to create a little wider driveway space. But then again, if I have no ordinance on which to hang an objection, I have to withdraw.
Just a great suggestion.
I also think, I've been living here since '98, and I've used that road, and I'm not sure that I've ever passed another car coming the other direction when I have used it. So what you're describing is not only two cars passing, but also a car pulling out at the same time. I just don't think that would happen.
I don't mean to contradict you. I've been here for a little bit longer than that, and I have seen that, especially in the wintertime. And if they're going to be piling up snow in the snow storage area, and I've got a pickup coming out, and I'm going in, heading towards Center Street down Pine, and I'm already going downhill, and I've got to make a turn, and the road is a little slippery, I was concerned.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just...
So, Mike, I was told to hush up. We're going to be dealing with the snow thing here in a second, right?
Correct.
In response to that, I have done a little paper folding, and when you end up having the nose of the car outside of the garage, you find that it would be basically equivalent to where the nose of the car is presently in those parking places. So therefore, it is an equivalent turn radius.
Yeah.
And so therefore, it is approximately, and I may be off by a foot or two if you want to look at my origami.
No.
But I think that it is the same level of safety coming out.
My only concern in the regard to garages was I generally drive into my garage and back out of it. I generally don't back into my garage. So if you're backing out of your garage, you have the length of your car before.
But it would be similar to the way a nose-in parking person would be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, except nose-in parking person doesn't have walls constricting his line of sight. But it's moot at this stage.
When the nose of their car has come out of the building, it is
Well-
virtually identical to the...
Get no noolies in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
and how about talking about snow storage? Because Mr. O'Brien is dying to get to
You're going to move all that snow out of there, aren't you?
So I think what we're going to have is we're going to have less snow to move than we do today because we're moving pavement, and it's going to end up in the same area of the site that it does now, but it's not going to be in the wetlands because the wetlands are going to be marked as you've already approved the special use permit, and that if anything is excessive and we get to a point where we have to push it into the wetlands or push it into the areas to disturb here, it will be removed from the site.
So my colleague just showed me, you have a note that says you're going to remove snow from the site up there. But you also have this little comment over here about snow storage. That might be just incidental snow storage. You're not actually creating snow storage here. It just might be something that flops off the plow.
That's right, yeah, there's not piles
Because I was going to say you might be able to buy yourself a foot or two.
The reason that I label that as snow storage is just because we're not proposing any landscape right
Sure.
there. So if they plow, if there's a pile, if there's a 2-foot pile of snow there, that's fine. But there's not going to be a 10-foot pile of snow there.
Can I ask an unrelated question, Madam Chairman? Well, since she's not paying attention. And this is going to be 15 Pine Street? All these units are going to be 15 Pine Street?
It's 14 right now.
14 Pine?
I don't know what the
They'll all
address is.
be number 14 or 15 or something like that, Pine
I
Street?
don't know the answer to that right now.
Because we've created a new Pine Street.
We've created a new.
Yeah, if you have them all in there, it's a new Pine Street.
They're 14 Pine Street unit,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
potentially, yeah.
The fire department deals with that.
I would address the unit. I will be addressing the units when we get to that point, and I'm not sure how I'll address them at this time, but I'll handle that.
Thank you.
Can you locate the propane tank on your plan?
Yeah, it's on the back.
Here.
Item 16. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Lewis, anything else you want
No, I saved the driveway, that's the A lot of the other stuff is from the special use permit, so I'll stop there. And answer.
Okay, and then there was just one other, that access way that goes on to Mr. Shannon's.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Mr. Shannon is
But-
here or not, but there is a paved access way that, we didn't take a close look at that does exist today, and my understanding is that was just a verbal agreement to have that, and it serves no purpose or benefit that either party can live without, so we'll be blocking that off with a bioretention, and it will not exist in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Jeff? Thank you.
Just a few additional comments here. At the last meeting, there was discussion of a one-way conversion for this, and after discussions with the Public Works Director and Mr. Lewis, it was determined that change to the property wouldn't significantly increase safety in any way, so that idea was abandoned. I did speak to Dave Ford about improvements to Pine Street, and those are scheduled to happen in late 2018, 2019. That will be drainage improvements in addition to other curbing and roadway infrastructure improvements. So if anything, that's expected to improve the situation in the adjacent area of this proposed development. One item I did want to discuss again with the board is the provision of visitor parking. In this case, 2 parking spaces are being provided for sort of towards the car wash area. And we discussed at the prior meeting whether disconnected visitor parking was appropriate. So essentially when visitors park, they would have to exit their vehicles and cross the travel way to be a visitor at any of these 6 units.
The travel way being defined as the parking lot?
What's that?
The travel way being defined as the parking lot?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So I think it's important to maybe address that during discussion, but the board may find it's not an issue. Parking space calculations have been corrected. We had talked about no parking signage on the front area of the building to ensure that, unlike the rendering that is presented there, no cars will be parked in front of those garage doors in that 11-foot long area. That may be worth discussing.
Or on the other side of the street?
Or parallel on the other side of the street, something of that nature. We did discuss a stormwater management plan that was prepared by Mr. Lewis. We've had a favorable review by Ty and Bond. One pending issue exists, which I'll discuss later in my comments in just a second, but the proposed basin in connection to the existing drainage system on site appears to be adequate to deal with the increase in runoff and also really improve the site conditions, I think, beyond what's existing there today. Obviously, as part of the special use permit review and final approval, the applicant has certified that there'll be no storage, snow storage within the wetland areas, so that's already confirmed. The wetland scientist needs to stamp and certify this plan as well, similar to the special use permit plan, and similarly, a landscape architect needs to stamp the landscaping plan to ensure that the landscaping proposed within the bioretention basin is appropriate for that environment. So that's something that should be attached as a condition of approval. I did speak to the applicant's architect about possible height issues with the structure. However, I would not suggest adding that as a condition of approval as it will be addressed during the building permit phase of this project, but it's something that's been discussed. And finally, I'd like to touch on the letter of map amendment. And actually, Jeff, if you could speak to this maybe to start, it might be more effective. But I passed out a review letter from Ty and Bond issued yesterday, May 1st. And you'll see item 9 on that relates to the FEMA 100-year floodplain and a letter of map amendment. If Jeff, you could provide some background on that and potential actions moving forward, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'll try to not be particularly technical if I can, but
That'd be good.
this has been an issue on this property before, probably in this area. There is the FEMA mapped limits of the 100-year floodplain is shown on the site plan. It runs right through the site here, right through the corner of the proposed building here, up and around the site and down, and I think across the property to the north. And it's a Zone A floodplain, which means it's a 100-year floodplain that does not have any base flood elevation associated with it. So it gets a little tricky when you're out there on the site and you're looking at elevations to say, are you or are you not in the floodplain? So what we know has happened out here, if you look at the FEMA records and look at their website and look at the documentation that's even available on this site, there was a process that Mr. Zimmerman went through back in, I want to say it was the early 90s, but I may be getting that wrong, working with FEMA, they filed a request for a letter of map amendment, which is called a LOMA. And you can do that to remove certain areas from the floodplain. In this particular case, it's usually critical associated with a building. It has to do with flood insurance purposes so that you can avoid the flood insurance requirement if you're building within a floodplain. So in this case, they went through the LOMA process, and FEMA removed the existing buildings on this parcel from the floodplain, stating that these existing buildings and the finished floor elevations are above the floodplain elevations, so they are not within the floodplain, but they made no determination about the rest of the site. So there's a caveat on those LOMAs that the rest of the site may or may not be in the floodplain, but the buildings are out of the floodplain. Similar thing happened, I believe, across the street in the shopping plaza. I believe on the property to the north. There's a lot of these around town with lakefront properties and whatnot where people request LOMAs and the buildings get removed from the floodplain. So in this case, we have actual data from FEMA that we've submitted in our drainage report. I've referenced it in the project narrative that says these buildings are outside the floodplain. So we at least have some reference for where the floodplain is. We know it's below the elevation of these buildings. And we know that everything we're doing here, if you look at the existing conditions plan and the grading plan, is above the elevation of these buildings. So we know that if we're working above the if we're working at elevation here that's higher than these buildings, we're also higher than the floodplain elevation. So we can certify that we're above the base flood elevation according to FEMA, even though that base flood elevation isn't documented. We know that it's lower than these buildings, so therefore we know that we're not working within the floodplain. So we've described that in our drainage report. We've described that in our project narrative. Likely what will happen is when these buildings get built, when this building gets constructed, Mr. Zimmerman will elect to do the same process that he did for these buildings, file a letter of map amendment with FEMA to get this building or this portion of the building removed from the floodplain, which they will grant, and that will, that's done again for the purpose of flood insurance. For the purpose of this approval and the building permit that he's going to need to get in order to build that building, we will take the information that we've prepared already and just certify it into a letter that we're not impacting the floodplain, that we aren't affecting the base flood elevation, that all this work will be done above the flood elevation. And that's consistent with the requirements in the floodplain management ordinance that the town has. That should be something that the code enforcement officer is looking for in order to give him a building permit. And that is the recommendation from Ty and Bond that we do. So, and I believe that's a recommended condition of approval, which we're fine with.
The condition of approval is one of two that I would add to my list here, and the condition would be as it's proposed on the Ty and Bond letter dated yesterday. It would essentially be that the applicant provide a letter prepared and stamped by a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Hampshire that certifies the proposed redevelopment will not increase the BFE base flood elevation of the zone.
Well, the development won't. The BFE is the BFE.
Okay, anything else at this point? Yeah,
No.
then we've already accepted the application as complete, yeah, and I want to go to the public.
I had one more question.
Okay,
In that if there are going to be no parking signs preventing parking on the other side of the traveled road there, and this is on private property, who is going to be enforcing the regulation of no parking?
The property owner. I mean, we're not proposing any no parking signs right now. I think Matt had mentioned that as a discussion item for you folks. I don't think Mr. Zimmerman would prefer to have any parking signs there on the face of the building or opposite. It would be an enforcement issue for him if people were parking there. So I think the idea is we're trying to design a site where it was not conducive to park there. And if people are parking there, whether there's a sign there or not, it's going to have to be enforced. Don't park there.
And it could quickly turn into an enforcement issue for the town, though, should we receive some sort of...
But if it's on private property,
Well, if they're not conforming with the site plan that's approved, though, that would turn into an enforcement.
thank you.
Yeah.
okay, all right, thank you for now. Okay, members of the public, anyone want to comment?
Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, okay,
I did. Is that on? Yeah. I did have a couple letters I just wanted to pass out as part of the public comment. I'll do that.
Okay, could you just quickly reference them so that we know who they're from?
There's a letter here from Tim Melanson, who's a real estate agent in town, and a letter from Andrew Swenson at 35 Center Street and 7 Pine Street.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, would anybody like to comment on the application? Now is the time to do that. Okay,
Madam Chairman?
yes. Hi.
Hi, Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Board. I stand to speak in favor of this application. I believe that this would be an overall improvement to the property in terms of wetland treatment. And I also think that it would be an improvement to the property in terms of traffic flow. I too use that entrance area to Clark Plaza. And this plan represents a general improvement to me as far as using that traveled way. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't get his name. Steve Hale. Steve Hale.
Excuse me? Yes, didn't you identify yourself?
Your name, Steve?
Steve. You want to?
Could you identify yourself again?
Yes.
Steve Hale.
Steve Hale. There's no flood
Okay,
map.
Mike.
We had a
did you-
question from Gary
Sorry, just a
regarding
second.
construction equipment in Pine
Yeah,
Street.
yes, right.
Didn't want to get that one.
Yeah, right. Why don't you go ahead and then, yeah, you folks had asked about construction equipment.
Matt Kraus. If you don't know me, we have a family business, a tax practice that's located out on the corner of 109 and 28, right across from 7-Eleven. Prior to moving out there, we were Mr. Zimmerman's tenants for 6 years at 14 Pine Street. And well positioned probably to comment on the parking situation and the traffic flow. We had 4 to 5 employees in that 6-year span that would report to work every day. There was a tenant upstairs that had a parking spot. So you're talking, 4 or 5 parking spots occupied daily by the unit, the residents and the commercial property on the first floor. And we have clients coming in and out daily. 2, 3, 4 clients coming in throughout the day. We've never, in 6 years, I never saw one accident.
Good.
I never had a client complain about not finding a parking spot. It was quite the opposite, actually. Many clients commented how convenient the location was and how adequate the parking is. So I don't know if the board has any questions for me related to traffic flow or parking, but I absolutely agree with Mr. Lewis. With the garages there, it's actually an improvement to the parking situation and the traffic flow, because it gives you a little more runway when you're backing up. But again, how the building's constituted now, we never had any problems, never saw any accidents, so.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions of Mr. Kraus?
I gotta look.
Okay, thanks a lot. And there was, okay, come on up.
Hi, I'm Sheila Holland from Rentals Plus, and I just want to bring the attention to the town of Wolfeboro and the residents, what a shortage of rentals we have in this area. We have nothing on an upscale situation where we have a nice family from Connecticut sold their house and want to move here because they love New Hampshire and love Wolfeboro. There's nothing. We have waterfront houses, but we don't have anything on a year-round basis in town, something that people could walk to go to the store. We don't have housing for the young people that work here. I have so many people that work at the dermatologist, people that are a counselor at the high school. They want to live here. There's nothing here. So we really need to pressure and work together and trying to get some of these places for nice places to live. I had a gentleman that was a landscaper. He tried to make application with the workforce housing at Harriman Hill. He made too much money. I showed him an apartment, and he said he would continue looking. It wasn't as upscale as he wanted. There's nothing nice in this town. We really need to think about addressing that, because the town of Wolfeboro, the employers in this town are not going to get employees. We have people that come in, that kids from college that are going to work at the local store, the local restaurant for the summer. I don't have anything that's reasonable rent for these people. So it's really, if the business people in the town of Wolfeboro really need employees, we need to help them, find them a place to live. There's nothing in Alton, there's nothing in Tuftonboro, Ossipee, there's nothing. So if a developer is willing to put some nice housing for people to live in, we really need to look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, issues came up about the construction, the demolition of the building. How will it affect Pine Street? Could you, did I sort of accurately
Carry on, Brett.
address what your concerns are?
Oh, do you want?
Well, yes, could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that the existing structure that is being raised and coming down, it's right on top of of Pine Street and that driveway. So we haven't had any conversations about construction to this point as part of this process. I would envision that access from Pine Street would need to be closed off for the demolition and from vehicular traffic.
Okay, but it's not going to affect Pine Street. And the
I don't think it'll
equipment
affect.
being
I don't
Pine
think we'll
Street.
have any. I mean, that entrance may be used for construction equipment coming in and out of the construction site. That would make sense rather than having it coming in from Center Street. But I don't see any reason for Pine Street to be, closed down at all. There may be some traffic control out there at times during the demolition. I would expect that driveway entrance to need to be closed down during construction, so people would need to be not using it to access the shopping center. That'd be my expectation.
Could you give us an idea of the timetable? I mean, do you know when the demolition will take place, just so the public has an idea?
Of the time frame for demolition, is going to be for demolition? It won't take-
Okay.
So it's ready to go as soon as this is approved. So the process wouldn't take very long, a couple weeks or 4 weeks, so a month for the demolition process.
Okay, and if this application is approved, the construction of the units, when?
Well, they wants it done before there's snow and for people to live there. So this year, I mean, it'll be done in the fall, right? Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And just quickly to comment on that, raised permits, demolition permits are reviewed by the Public Works Director. So any impacts to sidewalk infrastructure, not really applicable here, but or access would be addressed as part of that review process. I do think it's critical to note, though, that as the Center Street reconstruction project takes place, there's the potential for additional traffic impacts here, as folks don't want to wait in the delayed Center Street route and instead choose a detour route into the plaza, potentially through where this development is proposed. So perhaps closing of the entrance would be the most appropriate way to proceed with construction.
For construction?
Correct.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
and that's, I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other member of the public?
My name's Randy Walker. I'll be brief. I know you've got other applications this evening. Thank you for approving the special use permit on what I thought was somewhat questionable wetlands to start with. Secondly, one of the nice things about living in a small town is you get to talk to one another. And in the gap period between the last hearing and tonight, I chatted with 3 of the neighbors, one of whom's not here this evening, and I just wanted to answer a question that you have regarding the easement. There is no easement. It was just a gentleman's handshake. I did some legal research as well. There was nothing there, again, with just an arrangement between Carl and other neighbors. And it's one of the reasons he's not here tonight, because all the questions and the issues he had were addressed in the gap period, which is always nice when the town planner is available and we can talk to people in the community. As far as the traffic and safety issue that was brought up, the building, and I know just I'm rehashing for a sec, but the building's getting pulled back off the road a little bit. The bump outs will create more visibility for that side of the building, the west side, and by putting a stop sign at the entrance, you should have better traffic flow, and bottom line, it should be safer than it is currently. And I agree with Vaughn that I don't think there's a lot of traffic, from my experience, that goes in through there that's caused a problem. I think most of the people that go up Pine Street or come down Pine Street are through traffic. You know, they're trying to do a shortcut. They're not trying to get generally into the plaza. So I respectfully request that you approve the application as submitted. And just one other thought popped into my head, that the number of parking spaces on the side of the building, I think there's 10 there. They're going down to 6, so the opportunity for an issue is being reduced. 4 less spaces, 4 less cars that'll interfere with that traffic aisle.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, just one other issue, architectural design. Did you consider our architectural design guidelines?
It's my understanding that yes, that was taken into consideration. I did not have anything to do with the design. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Matt. But.
No, and conversations are sort of ongoing with the architect that represented the applicant, and you know, we received renderings of the proposed buildings, and it appears to meet the spirit of those regulations. One thing I will add, though, is that when we move to the building permit phase, there are some development standards for this zone that require certain facade elements, including windowing, certain window coverage of the front facade. So I'll have to discuss that with the architect when we get to that point in the review process. Okay.
Okay. Anyone have any issues about the design standards? Yes, here at the table. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Did you want?
Hi, thank you for hearing me. I'm Denise Williams. I'm in a butter at 30 Pine, and I agree with Sheila Holland that certainly will be a nice addition to the rental needs in the town. However, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I mentioned it at the first meeting in regard to the slope cut up against my property up by the storage buildings. I brought some documentation that I had from that time, a letter from, I believe, the town engineering firm to Rob Hausman, stating that they recommended that the owner and contractor review the stability of the slope with a qualified New Hampshire licensed professional engineer and submit information based on engineer's review of the slope stability to the town. And I don't know that that was ever followed up on. I brought some documentation to that and some current pictures. Randy Walker was kind enough to call me on that regard, but I have not heard what the resolution or the plan would be, and I'd like to give this to the members if that's permissible.
Okay, and I thought, did you have some comments about that? Because we did talk about it.
Yeah, I know it came up.
Yeah, we did discuss it, and I actually would like to see the material that Denise is going to provide, because I did do a bit of research, but I wasn't able to identify anything that's specifically related.
We can share.
More severe than I has envisioned. I did give Mr. Zimmerman, a letter of my approval at the time. However, I am concerned that that slope is not stable and that there'll be ongoing problems. So the steepness of it did require a fence, which did cross my property line, but I'm okay with that because it is dangerous, and I do not want tenants, and I had some prior with children there, to go near the slope because it's quite dangerous. But you can see where the fence crosses over, and I want to point out that granite posts the corner boundary line. And I believe there's also in the town zoning on prohibited projects where it talks about slopes and things like that. And I don't think, it says even of an approving a butter, it shouldn't be cut in more than 10 feet of a boundary, which I think it probably is. So my request would be that the town follow up on that, and that some sort of engineering plan be designed to stabilize that slope, perhaps a retaining wall. I as you know, and partnered with Mr. Lombard, who is a civil engineer. So he suggested, after observing the site, of a possible retaining wall to secure the safety of that slope. So I would just request respectfully from the town that that be followed up on. I have
Okay,
no
all
objection
right.
to Mr. Zimmerman's current project.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that's helpful that Matt has the information, so
you.
we will follow up on, is that correct? Okay, yes, we'll follow up. Okay, anything, anyone else? Everybody has commented? No other questions from planning board members? Okay, Matt?
Madam Chair? I did have just one other question, and looking through the plans here, Jeff, on the entranceway coming off of Pine Street, to define the entranceway, is that just going to be a loam and grass area, or do you plan on any curbing there to actually identify for the cars to pull in around?
The side adjacent to the building,
Yes.
we had not proposed any curb right there, just a grassed area. That's what's shown on the plan.
And is that an existing curbing that you're kind of showing on the other side?
It's an existing curb on
Right.
the other side, yeah, and there's an existing curb in the, I'm just trying to think on the fly. If I brought a curb in there, I'd probably just bring it around the return, not all the way up to the garage or anything like that. I don't see that there'd be any problem in doing that. It wouldn't affect anything else. It's not shown on the plan right now, but there could be some value in that.
Yes, as most people know, you know, even if you try and narrow up an area there, even if it's smooth there with lawn on it, people are gonna cut it, you know.
It's a curb, I mean, the curb that's there is a bituminous, I mean, if you're out there today, it's a roll curb, so, I mean, you're gonna be able to cut it, we're not gonna go put a, granite curb right in that little section there, so if they're gonna cut across it, I think they're gonna cut across it, but, it's something we could do, I mean, we could easily do that if you wanted to add a curb on that return. I'd propose a curb that matches the curb in the street right there, just around the return. If that's something you wanted us to add.
Okay, Brad?
Pardon? Yeah, I'm fine. I just kind of asked the question there to see if there was one proposed or not, you know.
Right, there's not one, we have not proposed one to this point.
Okay.
Could the board just speak to the signage issue real quick for parking? Just, I want to get confirmation on that there is either interest or no interest in requiring signage either on the building or in the area that would be possible parallel parking. Any signage favored by the board?
I think it's really up to the developer and the property owner, myself, private property.
Okay, do you have some conditions for us to consider?
Do.
I have one comment, and that's regarding the tree. I'm really in favor of some nice trees in town. And if we could just move that tree closer to the uphill side and get it out of the sight line by just pushing it up, I would be in favor of that.
So it doesn't interfere with the
Sight line.
line. Okay, Matt.
Okay.
You're not going to read all these plans, right?
No, I'll quickly review the dates though, because we do have some new plans. I try not to read all the plans.
Okay.
Condition number one, the following plans as amended to the date of this approval are incorporated into the approval. Plan one, which is the cover sheet, dated 5/1/2017. Plan two, an existing conditions plan dated April 21st, 2017. Plan three, site plan dated 5/1/2017. Plan four, removals plan, April 21st, 2017. Plan 5, grading and drainage plan, April 21st, 2017. Plan 6, lighting and landscape plan, April 21st, 2017. Plan 7, erosion control plan, April 21st, 2017. Plan 8, construction details, 5/1/2017. And Plan 9, construction details again, 5/1/2017. Condition 2, the applicant shall enter into construction observation agreement with the town's consulting engineer for site work. The cost shall be borne by the applicant. The applicant shall be responsible for the payment of all recording fees. A financial security based on the total cost of site improvements plus 10% should be provided. The financial security shall be reviewed by the town or their designee. All of the documentation submitted in the application package by the applicant and any requirements imposed by other agencies are part of this approval unless otherwise updated, revised, clarified in some manner, or superseded in full or in part. In the case of conflicting information between the documents, the most recent documentation in this notice herein shall be generally determined. Final plans to be certified and stamped by the original certified wetland scientist. Landscaping plan to be stamped by a licensed landscape architect in the state of New Hampshire. Final favorable stormwater management plan review by a town's consulting engineer, just to sort of tie that one up. 9, signature block to be changed. Actually, this has already been amended. Signature block has been changed, so I'll remove that condition. 10, an as-built to be provided following project completion. 11, plan amended to adjust the location of the proposed maple tree to allow for adequate site distance. Condition 12, curbing to be installed on the entrance to the property. Am I capturing that appropriately, Brad?
My thought would be not necessarily to have a vertical curb, but even if they want to do like a Cape Cod curb, Cape Cod berm or something like that, that at least Fakai does. I'm talking about on the, what do you call it, the southeasterly side of it there, something like that, to keep the water turn around or something like that. It just identifies a little bit more so cars aren't driving over the lawn area too and stuff to turn in.
Okay.
On that radius right there.
So curbing to be installed. I'll leave the curbing flexible on the southern side of the entrance. Does that capture it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then finally, per the tie and bond review letter, the applicant to provide a letter prepared and stamped by a professional engineer licensed in the state of New Hampshire that certifies the proposed redevelopment will not increase the base flood elevation of the zone.
Okay, and all of the other tie and bond comments were addressed.
Yeah, so technically we probably don't need the final favorable review, but let's include that just to be certain.
Okay. Okay. Everybody comfortable? Someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll do that. I move that the planning board vote to approve case number 2017-08, tax map lot 218-017, Indy Zimmerman Family Limited Partners of Wolfeboro Falls for the removal of an existing two-story building and the construction of new 6-unit multifamily building on the subject parcel with the 12 conditions cited as by reference.
Thank you. Second, someone?
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much, folks. Thanks, everyone, for your patience.
Good night, guys.
I changed,
I thought originally no, but then
Yes, please do.
Better that I do, Kathy.
that it was pre-disturbed.
Okay, next application, Brewster Academy, Anderson Hall. This is at 205 South Main Street, tax map 218-150-S, case 2017-14. This is a site plan review for lighting at the parking lot adjacent to Anderson Hall. You're up.
Okay, good evening. For the record, I'm Jim Rhines from White Mountain Survey and Engineering, and here representing Brewster for site plan review at Anderson Hall to add 3 lights to enhance the safety and security of the parking lot at Anderson Hall, and also to remove the temporary lighting that they had installed to take care of this issue. So the board may recall in 2013 they approved these improvements, a loop here, and the only thing that we're proposing this evening is 3 lights along this boundary line here. We, as part of the plan of review, Matt had requested that we get a photometric plan, and once I received that, we hired Risfrost Shumway, and I'm going to just flip this over so that you can see. So this is a photometric plan. This is the plan that was on the other side is 1 inch equals 30 feet. This is half again as large. This is 1 inch equals 20 feet. So here is Anderson Hall. You can barely make it out, but there's the loop turnaround in the parking area through here. This is Dennis Shower's property, Wayne and Marilyn Dow's, and Pierce's property here. So the proposed lights are here, here, and here. As you can see from the photometric plan, there are shield cutoffs here. Brewster is trying to unify their lighting throughout the campus. And so the light that they have here is a Sternberg fixture that has a lantern look to it, but it's retrofitted with an LED, Sylvania LED retrofit that goes up underneath the copper cap, and it's recessed so that there is no lighting that goes above the horizontal. And then in this instance, because it's up against the boundary line over here, it has a neighborhood shield addition to the light. And so, as you can see on the photometric plan that we have shown, all of this row of numbers is all 0, and in here they get the maximum is about 0.5, I think. I think, and the parking lot in general, all stays no less than 0.3, which is what they recommend for safety in parking areas.
When we approved the parking lot, we did not approve any lights in that parking lot, is that?
You approved lighting. It was over on, there was some lighting, pedestrian lighting, that was these same fixtures that went here. There was a photometric plan provided. There were these lights that exist on this property, on the building. Some of these lights, one is being removed, and the others are, now that this is going to be here, will be able to be focused down more.
Okay, what kind of a shield are you putting on these lights?
There is a shield that goes on the back side of the lights to prevent.
So it sort of will come kind of a
it's an opaque shield. I mean, I have Dan Noyes here with me, as well as Lisa Brademan. Dan has actually spoken with the lighting manufacturer, and he could probably describe it, but my understanding is it's an actual completely opaque shield that goes on. They call it a neighbor shield, and it goes on the side that you want to obstruct the light.
And it would kind of drop down.
It goes the full glow.
Okay.
On the side that's being obscured. That's really it. It's pretty straightforward. Matt, in his plan review, he had in there he spoke to a note 3. I'm going to turn the plan back over. So in this area, there is a note on the plan that speaks to when we prepared the 2006 Alta plan. There was one of the restrictions in a deed change said that no building could go on a portion of the lot that was that makes up part of the campus. That has nothing in this area. It's it's actually off of this section, but it's back over in here. So that wasn't applicable to this. Under the lighting, he had just mentioned to submit a photometric plan, which we did, and I believe that the rest of there's no other changes. We did ask for a waiver from showing snow storage simply because nothing has changed from the 2013 plan. We're not proposing any changes as a result of adding these street lights.
Okay, so there are two
waivers.
Waivers.
Correct. Second waiver being for total on-site square footage of impervious surfaces, correct?
Oh, yes, yeah. In this portion of it, you can see the entire property, and we just felt, rather than going through and calculating all of the areas where we were not making any changes, the cost benefit with no change was, we were hoping that the board would think that was a reasonable request.
Okay,
I'd be happy to answer any questions the board or the public has.
thank you.
My comments are very brief, and actually it's just a question. Jim, could you clarify the dark sky compliance issue that arose as part of this application?
Yeah, when we hired the lighting consultant, apparently between 2013, when the board approved this, and today, the dark sky compliance requirements say that you can't have more than 3,000 Kelvin, and Wolfeboro's regulations allow 4,500 with LED. These are the same fixtures that were approved before. They're just trying to be uniform. So she said, I can't certify that it's dark sky compliant because the dark sky compliant regulations have changed from what those are, but I can, it cuts it off horizontal. It doesn't go above the horizontal. You can't see the light, and it does all the other aspects of the dark sky. Because of that change between 2013 and now.
And I did some research to identify whether a waiver was necessary for this section, and it appears within the ordinance or the site plan regulations, there are no specific provisions requiring dark sky compliance by name. So just to clarify for the board, as long as the principles are adhered to within the design, it qualifies under both the zoning ordinance and the site plan review regs. Did I cover that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we don't have to waive.
Do not have to waive dark sky compliance,
Okay.
night sky compliance.
Okay, so did you have anything?
That's it. Yeah, I think my plan review was pretty comprehensive. I think Jim addressed any of the small items I had in there.
Okay, so he's requesting two waivers, which Jim has just gone over the reasons for waivers. Does anybody have any issues with the waivers? Okay, would somebody be willing to make a motion to grant the two waivers?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded, I hope.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of granting the waivers, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right, with the granting of the waivers, then the application is considered complete. So somebody would make a motion to accept this application as complete.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded, and all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Any member of the public that wants to comment on this application? Oh, and we should mention that we did receive an email from you, Mr. Pierce. Come on up.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Al Pierce, 11 Green Street. By the way, this month, we're there 50 years. So I guess that turns me into probably the oldest living resident on the street. I'm surprised that I haven't heard addressed the 5 or so lights that are mounted on the side of the building that are the chief offenders here. It hasn't been spoken of that those bright lights have been shining on the showers as well as us. But I don't hear anything about, I think you told me, did you, that you're going to adjust those? Can we address that?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all I got to
Oh,
say.
that's all you have? What about the proposed lights, then? You're okay?
Yeah, those 3 post lights are just replacing the temporary things that they had up.
Right.
That sounds okay to me.
Okay.
But it's those big ones up there that we need to talk about.
All right. Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Let's see if anyone else wanted to comment. Just
Good evening. I'm shorter than Al. My name is Lisa Brademan. I'm the Chief Financial and Operations Officer for Brewster Academy, and I'm here to testify in support of the application. We have had 3 lights on the building before we did the 2013 construction. We added some additional temporary lighting and adjusted the position of those lights because of some unfortunate incidents that happened in the parking lot affecting our students. And we do have about 45 local day students, many of whom drive to campus, park in that lot, and for most of the year that they're coming to school, they don't just leave at 2:30, they stay for athletics, they stay for evening study, and they go home in the dark. So it's very important to us that the lot be lit and their safety is preserved. So the town actually asked us to come back and remove those temporary lights and come up with a permanent plan. So we'll be removing additional temporary lights that are on the building and then refocusing the other lights in the building down so they're not shining in Al's and the neighbors' yards. That's why we're putting these lights up. As you can see from the photometric plan, we're actually going to have good lighting on that side of the lot for the first time. So this is a very positive and expensive outcome, but it's important for us to do this so that we have a more permanent solution in place.
Okay, so two of the lights are temporary and they're going to go away.
There are
in the building.
Dan can speak in more detail. We had.
I'm Dan Noyes. I'm the Director of Facilities for Brewster Academy. And what we are doing is actually addressing Mr. Pierce's concerns. That's the whole point. That is much of the point of this.
Okay.
The 3 lights that are on the building are the ones that in addition to shining on the building side of the parking lot, also shine into the 3 houses. So when we install these 3 light poles with their house shields to prevent light from going onto the neighbors' properties, we will then be able to remove or redirect the lights on the building so that we're not shining light into their living rooms.
Okay. All right, and then they will be dark sky compliant as we would have approved in 2013?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So that will take care of Mr. Pierce's concerns? Mr.
Okay,
Pierce? Do you understand that, Mr. Pierce? They're going to be removing the 3 offensive lights?
Yes. Redirecting.
Okay.
Redirect.
Change the actual fixture. The intent
Yes.
is to make it better.
That is our intent.
Thank you.
Okay, what's your timetable for this?
These lights,
Summer?
when you add in
Okay.
light from here to here.
All right,
exactly
this
the
summer.
same numbers.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment? Okay, board members?
I just have a question about this photometric plan. It has zeros on the property line. It doesn't mean that they won't see the light. They will see the light. Just.
Yes, they won't see the source.
Yeah.
And these are going to be LED lights. They're sort of bright LED lights and kind of soft ones. Are these going to be the soft ones?
So these are proposed to be 4,000 Kelvin The Wolfeboro allows up to 4,500. It is a white light. It's not a yellower light, because that tends to cast shadows and is not as good for both safety, and it's also consistent with the lighting. And one of the things that Rist Frost said is if you tried to change that down to 3,000, that it would be noticeable. It would be very detectable from a standpoint of, gee, something's different here. Why is this different? So.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, Matt, do you have some conditions?
Sure. And I think I'm going to add a condition relative to the redirecting of the lights as well. The board is amenable to it. Condition number 1, the following plan is amended to today's approval, is incorporated into the approval. Plan 1 being the site plan that was provided to the board in advance of this, and that's dated April 11th, 2017. Plan 2, I'd like to make the site lighting photometric plan dated May 2nd, 2017. Plan 3, the site lighting photometric plan, the second sheet here, dated May 2nd, 2017. Condition 2, the applicant shall be responsible for the payment of all recording fees. The application is submitted does not satisfy all requirements for a building permit. Condition 4, all documentation is submitted does not satisfy all requirements for a building permit. All the documentation submitted in the application package by the applicant and any requirements imposed by their agencies as part of this approval, unless otherwise updated, revised, clarified in some manner, superseded in full or in part. In case of conflicting information between documents, the most recent documentation in this notice herein shall be generally determining. In condition 5, I would propose existing building mounted lightage shall be adjusted to be dark sky compliant.
Okay, everyone all right with those conditions? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing for this application, and if someone would be willing to make a motion regarding this application.
I move that we approve case number 2017-14 with the conditions mentioned.
Thank you.
Second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. All right. The next application, and I probably should have mentioned before that the last 2 applications to do with Depot Square Condominium Association will be continued until June 6th, but I'll read those into the record after we get done with this next application, which is Goodhue and Hawkins Navy Yard, LLC. This is a public hearing site plan review, and at 244 Sewell Road, tax map 241-36, case 2017-13. And this is site development, which includes a new building on the Goodhue Hawkins Navy Yard property.
Madam Chairman, for the record, I sat on the ZBA board that approved the 4 variances that were granted to this applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Need some more easels, Jim.
Okay.
It's basically the same.
Well, it's actually, this is all miscellaneous boats and cars.
Whenever you're ready, we are.
My dog and pony show is set up here.
And change, getting rid of this.
Get away.
So again, for the record, my name is Jim Rhines. I'm from White Mountain Survey and Engineering, and I'm here representing Goodhue and Hawkins Navy Yard LLC in their application for site plan approval to redevelop their lot. For the benefit of the board and the public that's here and any viewing audience that might tune in, The property was purchased and redeveloped in 2005, and that received site plan approval for the present service building, some storage, as well as a 3,710 square foot showroom space that was going to be 2 floors and was going to be constructed in this area here. That approval, with the exception of that one building, all of the improvements have been completed and have been in operation, and the 3,710 square foot building was granted an extension until May 17th of 2017. So that is still a valid approval and could be built today. Through the operation of the property over the last 10 to 12 years, they have had some safety concerns highlighted. Specifically over here in 2015, a brake wasn't set on a forklift and it rolled across Sewell Road and ran into the existing showroom building. That made them realize that they needed to make some design changes to improve safety and at the same time try to improve aesthetics. So as part of that process, as was just mentioned, we went in August of last year and got 4 variances, one for road front setback. We are actually improving the setback, but because of the modification of this building, we have new encroachment where a building doesn't exist today, so we needed a variance for that even though we're improving it. We needed a waterfront setback. Again, we are maintaining the same waterfront setback, or it's getting greater. But again, because it didn't comply with the waterfront setback, we needed a variance. We received a variance for the impervious coverage of the lot, and we got a variance to increase it slightly, but actually I believe that we will ultimately reduce it or not increase it by the amount that was granted for the variance. And the 4th variance was to allow us to expand an existing non-conforming structure by more than 25%. So those variances were granted, so the intent of the redevelopment, as I said, is to improve both the safety by keeping all this between this proposed showroom building and the existing maintenance facility. This will all be for workers, and so that the public generally will not be in this space. The entrance, which is presently here and quite steep, is actually now going to be moved up here, so it will be a much more level entrance, come in and then lose the grade down to this location. The redevelopment, by keeping the public and then the workers separated there, that will improve safety. It also, by shifting the building slightly north, it makes a straighter shot going across, because occasionally, a boat will be removed from here and it's on a forklift and it comes down, and they today have to turn, sort of go down Sewell Road and then go, so it'll be more of a straight shot. The other things that will help is this building will actually, as I said before, be moved back. So it will improve the sight distance, because if a boat comes out of here, a forklift comes out of here with a boat on the forks, the boat is well out in advance of where the driver can see, so the boat is out in Sewell Road before they can see. So we're changing that from right now. The wall was 1.7 feet away, and under the proposed situation, it will be 9.9 feet away, so improving that by over 8 feet. The other good thing that will happen is this building will become ADA compliant, so that is another improvement. And also, by not constructing the building that they have an approval to construct here, which is a 2-story building, we won't be obstructing the view of this abutter out over the lake by incorporating that square footage here. So that's another advantage. We have met with the state of New Hampshire twice on this, because though it's not necessarily part of the board currently today, the negative lift is on this side of the property. So if they come down, go over here with a forklift and then go down, the negative lift is going to get moved here, which will of course keep the forklifts from needing to make this maneuver. So we've met with the DES about reconfiguring the docks as well as the shoreland, and they're waiting. We want to make sure that everything's okay here and then submit, but they're all on board and don't see any issues with this redevelopment plan. We did do the drainage analysis, and Ty and Bond reviewed that. I was away 3 days last week, and Matt thought that we got the copy of the Ty Bond review directly, and he found out yesterday afternoon late when I was talking to him that I hadn't seen it, so he got it to us. We've reviewed it, and I am confident that we can address everything that that has been raised in there, and I can touch on some of those if the board is interested. I'll just start to go through Matt's. That's sort of an overall summary. I can walk through Matt's plan review because he had a number of things that he suggested that I speak to.
Okay.
So, as he mentioned in here, the access, and I mentioned the access is presently about in this location, and it's being shifted up to here. So that is going to require a driveway permit from the town. And Matt has recommended cross-hatching. That was raised, cross-hatching on Sewell Road where forklifts will go, and we talked about some traffic calming things that as long as the town is in support of that, the Goodhue and Hawkins is as well.
So, but that would require going to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we would work with the town and whatever needs to be done to do that. Parking circulation, Matt notes that we are proposing 55 spaces, and the applicant should provide parking calculations in support of that. So let me just hand out for the board's benefit. So this is the 2005 plan that was approved and shows the proposed showroom building that is the permit is still valid. We have 55 parking spaces on here, so in our exercise here, we created the same 55 parking spaces. I'm going to point on this one, but you need to look at your 2005 plan. In this area here, you will see that these parking spaces were carried forward from the original 1985 approval, and there are 10 spaces that really don't exist on that 2005 plan. You can see that they go into bedrock and portable sanitation tank and portable storage tank. So those are, so while we're providing the same number of spaces here, we're actually providing them in this instance. We also went through and I did a parking computation using the first floor of the service building. The service building here, there are 4 service bays, and the parking requirements are 2 spaces per bay, which would trigger 8 spaces. The second floor of this is parts, and the parts room office, as well as a break room. So at the marina, the parking requirements for what's the word I'm looking for? Take the word.
Boat dealership? I believe it's boat dealership.
It's boat dealership, yes, thank you. That's 1 space per 300 square feet, so that was 10.2 spaces. The new showroom is 5,120 square feet on the first floor and 3,092 on the second floor, because it has a portion of it is, this portion is floor to ceiling open. So that requires 27.4 spaces, and then there are 16 slips that were sold, and those are 1 space for every 2 slips. So that's 8 spaces. That comes to 53.6 spaces, rounded up, because you can't park in a 0.6 space, gives you 54, and we have 55. So I think both adhering to the old approval and going through this exercise, we think that we've demonstrated what Matt had requested.
Jim, could you quickly touch on the standard you used for boat repair again? What was that?
Yeah, the boat repair is, in the regulations, is when you have a boat repair bay, they want 2 spaces per bay. And so there are 4 bays, and that worked out to 8 spaces.
I think it says 5 plus 2 per work bay, or 5 plus 2. Yeah, 5 plus 2 per work bay.
Yeah, I think that's only if this wasn't a dealership.
Okay.
But it was just if it was just a boat repair facility, then you need to provide the 5 plus the 2. But when you have a dealership, I think that's factored into your 1 per 3, because then they go plus 2 per working bay. So that's why I thought that was the distinction. Also, in the parking, Matt, we do take advantage of the 2-foot overhang that is allowed, and we put curb stops there. And Matt just wanted, and there are also low shrubbery that we have proposed along the vegetated area here. And Matt wanted me to speak to potential obstruction. The curbing stops the vehicle from going on to the lake, and generally when the tires are touching the curbing, the nose of the vehicle is that 2-foot overhang. So, and the shrubbery is low shrubbery, so we don't think that there's any obstruction, and that so that makes those as compliant as in compliance with the regulations. We also, Matt just wanted me to confirm that the aisle widths are 22 feet, and yes, they are. Throughout, we have 22-foot aisles. I'm going to flip over one of the plans here. So with regard to landscaping, the requirements are that you have 1 tree within 30 feet of every parking space. Right here, we proposed a shrub. So if we put a tree there, these two handicap spaces and these trees, I think there's there's two here and maybe two here that don't comply with that. The reason we didn't put a tree is if you look here, you'll see this is where the underground fuel oil tank is. And we thought it might be advisable to not put a tree there where the root system, had a potential to impact it. If the board thinks that we need the tree there, we certainly can. That would make every parking space compliant. And I raise that for the board's consideration, but that is why we have why those couple of spaces aren't compliant. If we put a tree there rather than a shrub, they would all be compliant. The storm drainage, apparently we have a wrong reference in the storm drainage requirements. They have a section for redevelopment, and obviously this is a redevelopment of a site that is nowhere near the standards of today for either Wolfeboro or the Shoreland Protection Act, and we are significantly improving it, and that's the reason why DES is on board, and we believe that we have complied with the intent of the redevelopment section of the stormwater regulations. We've gone from 19.2% of the site receiving treatment to 42.2%, and there was Matt had quoted just above the last sentence in there under the drainage, said that no runoff, quote unquote, leaves the site. He put a period, but our note doesn't have that period. It says no runoff leaves the site and drains onto a third-party property. The runoff does leave the site. It goes to the lake, and so we showed a comparison node, but we have improved the situation. Some of the improvements include some pervious areas here for stormwater to run into. We've also provided deep sump catch basins to collect any grit, sand and grit. We have a vegetated swale here before it goes in. And then there are also this vegetated buffer along here as part of the process. I feel like I missed building height. Was that earlier?
No, that's later.
That's later,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep,
So,
don't worry, you're not going to miss it.
all right, okay.
We're watching.
Right.
Yeah, good. Keep me on track. It's been a longer night for you guys, and the other issues that were raised by Ty and Bond, we have looked at those. We're all prepared to address them. I can go through some of those with the board now, or I can continue through the plan review and circle back to the Ty and Bond.
Can we circle back, Madam Chairman? Is that appropriate?
Okay.
Okay. The impervious coverage, Matt had a question about further clarification. When you look at the HydroCAD calculations, they pick up off-site areas that are not actually on the site. So that was the reason for the HydroCAD calculations being different than the on-site.
I think it did.
Luckily.
Hopefully my batteries won't go dead. So that's the reason, but we are only increasing the runoff, the impervious by 80 square feet as a result of ours. And we're going to make a more detailed note so that everyone can understand that as part of the request in the review of tie and bond. Snow storage. Obviously, this is more of a summer for all of this parking area here, more of a summer use. There's a sign in this location, and they generally do not plow snow out here. We are also adding a note that no snow would be plowed into the lake as requested. We thought it was implied, but they don't do that now, and we'll make a note that they won't. Also, some of the snow storage we had shown was, snow storage would be shown along here when they're plowing, and a question was raised about what will that do to the catch basins. And my experience, I'm not a professional snow plower, but I can tell you that whenever stormwater runs off, I have about a 8 or 9 foot snowbank that I snow blow into and create, and all of the stormwater from the road that runs by my house comes down, turns into my driveway, and if it's ever melting, it goes underneath that snow. It doesn't block it. And so our expectation is that when there is melting, it will go into the catch basin because that's the low point. And as I said, we are putting a note that there will be no dumping of snow onto Winnipesaukee. I'm just going to flip another one to the erosion control plan next. So on the erosion control, one of the comments was that we should provide a detail of the check dam, and we actually do provide one on the plans that were submitted, and it just may have been overlooked. It's on sheet 8 of 11 in the upper right-hand corner. In addition to being a silt log detail, it also notes in the upper right-hand corner, it says plan view of check dam option on the silt log detail.
Apologies for that. Yeah, I missed that.
Well, it's only an 11-sheet set. I can't believe you've missed that. So we do have that, and that's that's how that will be handled. The erosion control is we show the silt log. The check dams down through this ditch. Because this is an impervious site as the construction is going on, we're proposing to lay silt logs on here to trap. That's what these lines are, is to trap anything that's on the pavement, because obviously you can't drive silt fence through the pavement. That will be put in so that this area can be altered first. We also have a proposed turbidity screen along here as a secondary defense in case anything does get by the silt log and come down. The utilities will be serviced by municipal sewer and water, and we will coordinate with the Public Works Department on that. And we have shown the locations on the site plan, which is it's in this area here. The lighting, we have proposed some pole-mounted lights, and I'm going to go back to the lighting and landscape plan. So we have proposed some pole-mounted lights that you can see around the parking area there. And we have proposed those to be on 12-foot high poles. We submitted a cut sheet. We did not do a photometric plan, but we have proposed for them to be shield cutoff, ground-directed, color-corrected white lights.
What type of lighting does the facility have now?
Right now, maybe Steve or Spencer could tell me. I think there's a yard light and there's lights on the building.
On the building?
Got people on TV. We need you. We need you on camera.
Hi, Steve Durgan from Goodyear and Hawkins Navy Yard. The lighting, are you asking about a specific area or the entire property?
I was just curious what lights you have on the existing facility as compared to what's being proposed, that was all.
Okay, on the existing facility, there are lights in the front of the building on each one of our buildings so that there's adequate lighting for customers arriving at night after business hours. There are also lights that go on over all of the docks so that as they're walking out to the docks or coming in from the water, it's adequately lighted.
Okay.
There are some yard lights out on a pole out by the sign.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know if that sign would be retained right there. It looks like it. Yeah, the yard lights, they're all will be maintained. They will remain. I mean, we'll need that. I don't see that there's any plan to change them in any form.
Okay, and are the lights on all night for security?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading through the plan review. In addition to the pole-mounted lights, we do have some lights proposed for the buildings, which we show them in here. You can see them in the on the perspectives, and also under the eaves here. There's I think there's one here, and there's one inside the building here, which I think maybe was dragged and not put in the right spot, so I need to check that. But in terms of protection of natural resources, we are not, there's no wetlands on the site, and so obviously the biggest resource is the lake, and we're going to be working with the Shoreland Protection Act for their redevelopment here, as well as the stormwater management regulations. Under zoning compliance, as Matt mentions and I did, we had the 4 variances that were granted, and the one issue that was raised is about, we show retaining walls here, and we showed those in the event that the bedrock that we see on the surface is not bedrock, but we're pretty confident that it is. So I don't think those retaining walls will actually be constructed. If they are, walls under 4 feet in height aren't a structure. My guess is that these walls are, as we show them, are a maximum of 8 feet, and they drop down to 6 and then under 4. So if we We know that there's exposed bedrock from about this point over to here, so I expect that we're going to encounter it when we get down to depth, so I feel fairly confident that any retaining wall that was on top of bedrock is going to be less than 4 feet. So therefore, it wouldn't be deemed a structure, and therefore it would not have to comply with setbacks. As far as the building height is concerned, as we show on the cross sections that were submitted, the first floor is 507.5 and the peak is at 549. So Matt had a concern that the building height was 41.5 feet. However, Wolfeboro's, the way Wolfeboro determines building height, you first calculate the grade plane, and Wolfeboro defines grade plane as being the existing grade around the proposed building. So when we did that, we computed an average, and you take it every 10 feet as you go around the building. The average grade plane was 507.36. And then the height of the building on structures that have a roof pitch of under a 10 on 12, this is an 8 on 12, is 30 feet. And that is exclusive of a cupola that's under 144 square feet, which this one is, or these two are. So the height is actually the average height from the eave to the peak. So the eave elevation is 525.5. The peak is at 549, so the average is 537.25. So if you take the 537.25, subtract the grade plane, which is 507.36, and you get a building height by Wolfeboro's definition of 29.89 feet. So we are compliant.
And I realized that after adding that, because you add a note similar to that was added on the 2006 approval, which actually addresses this really nicely.
Oh, this is, oh, it's 29.2. Yeah, they had a.
Did you add something similar to that? Is that possible?
Can we do something similar to that?
Yeah, just to throw it on the
absolutely.
plan.
Yep. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Solid waste disposal will occur within the structure. Floodplain, Wolfeboro, or excuse me, Winnipesaukee has a flood elevation of elevation 506. So anything 506 and lower is in the floodplain. Anything 506 and above is, or above 506, I should say, is out of the floodplain. So we are not proposing any structure development within the floodplain. As it says here, the first floor is going to be 507.5. So we're 1.5 feet above the flood zone. The last thing is the security for improvements, and I don't know, I guess I lost my mind when I made the submittal and I simply omitted it, so I realized it, and I didn't want to try and produce one because Matt had suggested, for tonight, because Matt had suggested that it get reviewed by the town's engineer, so we will submit that with the other comments to Ty and Bond for their review. But as the board is probably aware, we simply take a means standard estimating guide, compute the site work improvements, and so as long as we don't miss a computation or an area or a volume, it should be fairly straightforward. Design review, our signage, we have the existing, we've showed proposed signs on the building. And those will get reviewed at the time for the sign permitting process, as Matt noted. Under design review, we've provided you with 7 perspectives, I believe, of the building. Though there's no accounting for taste, I think anybody would agree that they're pretty attractive buildings. They've tried to disguise the mask some with the second eave around, so I think that they are generally in compliant with the voluntary review guidelines.
What was your timetable for this project?
I beg your pardon?
Timetable?
The timetable, we need to get all of the permitting in place. I have Brent Pratt here, and he could probably speak to that.
Hi, I'm Brent Pratt with Goodhue and Hawkins. We need to get through all of the permitting process, which is extensive. And so I would assume we're going to diligently try to do this before next summer. But it probably won't be, we'd like to get mostly through next summer and then do it through the fall of next year.
The fall of 18?
Of 18, yes.
Yeah, okay.
We're trying to beat the deadline that was set for us with all of these different permits.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And I think what he's referring to is the variance was granted in August, and that's when that 2 years is up next August.
And there will be activity done prior to that August cutoff date?
We'll come over with a shovel and dig around.
Okay.
I have a question about the entryway of the driveway.
Yes?
It seems reasonably narrow. As in, it seems like it's only about 2 parking spaces wide. Is that going to be appropriate for people driving in and out?
Yeah, it's 22 feet wide, excluding the flares, so that's two-way travel.
So I have a question too about that entrance. I don't think I would like it very much if I was living across the street from it. And so I wonder if it can get angled away from that building so that the headlights don't hit it every time somebody exits at night.
We typically try to make the driveways normal to the road. There's not a lot of room. That's sort of the flattest spot before you drop down. I guess I understand your point. We could look at shifting it slightly further north, closer to the boundary line, so that it's not directly shining in, and keep it. I think your regulations say not to get more than 60 degrees. So I think we could look at shifting this up.
Would you say most of the traffic comes from the town side and not the Forest Road side? So it's slightly arguable that that's not terrible.
Steve Durgan again. Most of the traffic currently and in the future with this plan are all out of there after dark. We don't typically have very many people using the marina after dark. Now, that changes in the fall and the spring when the sun sets much earlier, but we don't typically have any customers that use their boats at that time. So right now, you would see some of our workers are leaving at 5 or 5:30, when it was dark before we changed the time. But that wouldn't be the case once we get into the season. So I don't really see that there's very much traffic there at all. As a matter of fact, I used to live in the house that we're talking about, I lived there for a couple, 3 years, and I can't say that the lights ever bothered us in our front window at all. So I don't see that the lighting is really an issue right there. Any other questions about that?
Also, will this showroom be open in the winter?
The showroom is open in the winter,
Yeah.
but we typically don't have anybody in there in the winter. We go to boat shows and so forth in order to reach our customers. Fully 85% of our customers come from out of town, out of state. It's a unique kind of business in that respect.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Oh yes, the vast majority of the customer base comes from the downtown area, not from the other side of Sewell Road.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess one other point I would mention, Vaughn, to that regard is the existing entrance, which I know you're familiar with. You come out of there and it's quite abrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So any vehicle that comes out of there now, their lights are shining across this building as well. Anytime they go towards town, if they're doing it at dark.
So I wonder about blasting right up on that hillside. Have you considered about the house right next to it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to be the blasters. I mentioned it at the TRC, but when Sugar Hill was done, there was a ton of blasting, and they poured the foundation, and it hadn't even cured for 28 days, and they decided they needed to put in another septic tank right beside this green foundation, and they blasted within 10 feet of it. And the guy said, it's all in how you do it. They'll have to do pre-blast verification, and but yeah, that's going to be a sensitive area, obviously.
You'll provide notification to the abutters, obviously.
Oh yeah, I think that's a requirement.
Yep.
I think all blasters, they have to do a pre-blast survey, then they have to notify when it's going to happen and all that stuff.
Okay, you all set?
I believe I am. I'd be happy to answer questions the board or the public has.
I think we've covered most everything in my review. I do want to touch on the tie-in bond letter in just a second, though, and give Jim an opportunity to speak to those comments that he just received today. And the plans have not been revised to reflect. But Jim addressed pretty much everything here. Jim, could you speak to impacts to Sewell Road during construction and how that will be dealt with, and which of those construction entrances that's been identified might be used? Or all of them, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, I think the construction entrance, obviously the existing entrance will probably be used at the start of the project. Mm-hmm. But once we get this area in, the intent will be to do this site work first in order to get that down so that can get stabilized, so that then the silt socks and stuff can be removed. On the new, this one is paved, so you wouldn't be tracking soil out, and our construction entrance detail that we show is crushed stone to get the tires, to get the soil off the tires. So as they start using this one, that's where that construction stone would be placed initially before it is paved.
Just something to point out here when it comes to signage, there are no standards provided for, no dimensional controls provided for the shorefront residential district within the zoning ordinance, which is somewhat interesting. So for the shorefront residential, there are no dimensional requirements in place. So at the point in the process where signage is to be reviewed by a sign permit, we'll have to explore how to process that. I think it's just important to point out, as you can see, that 2 wall signs are proposed on the building. And I think that we'll have to identify a process for that.
Well, that's already a problem.
Interesting note, yeah, just a sort of aside.
It's known as a variance.
Turning attention to the tie and bond review letter, there are a few comments that they offered that I don't think are necessarily appropriate, so I was hoping we could go through the ones that I think are important to address, which actually I guess are most of them. But Jim, could you address the comments on the proposed site development plan, sheet 2 of 11? That would be the
Yes,
snow removal. I think you
so-
already did. I just want to go through these one
On
by
that,
one.
the snow removal, we're going to add a note regarding the snow storage, and we'll identify that snow isn't plowed out beyond this area, so this, could be snow storage. We're going to add a note that prohibits any dumping of snow into the lake. I've mentioned they questioned about snow being plowed onto catch basins, and as we said, our experience is the runoff finds the lowest level and goes beneath it.
There were some questions about the vegetative swales and providing a detail, and then how exactly stormwater that enters those swales will be infiltrated.
So the stormwater, we modeled these stormwater depression areas here and here as no exfiltration because the soil isn't great here. Really there will be some, but in any event where they fill up, the grading is such that any overflow drains onto these porous paved areas, which they have a medium and they also have an outlet. So it will drain out through these porous ones on larger events and small events. It may stay puddled there for a few hours, but it ultimately will leach in. There is some leaching, but we didn't model it in our calculations. We modeled no exfiltration. And so we'll explain that to tie and bond in the thing. And we also, on the plan, we've started to make the changes to address these. And one of the things is we added some spot grades, a couple more spot shots so that they would understand how that would go if those filled up.
And then contributing area to pervious pavers, and then the 5-to-1 ratio for the AOT. Obviously, this doesn't require an AOT permit. That's
Right.
why you're submitting under the stormwater management regulations. But can you speak to that 5-to-1 ratio and its applicability to this?
The 5-to-1 ratio is a requirement of alteration of terrain. This doesn't require it, and so there's no specific requirement for us to, but we looked at them, and our range is from 4.3 to 1 up to no more than 5.5 to 1. So they were 4.3 to 1, 4.6 to 1, 5 to 1, and one of them was 5.5 to 1. We feel like it's not a requirement to be 5 to 1. We've pretty much met the intent. And since there's no specific requirement, and we're the ones signing and sealing it, not tie and bond, we feel comfortable with the liability. We think we've met the intent.
Disconnected impervious cover areas.
Yeah, we have done we've done a shading to show those disconnected. So these pervious areas, they don't catch every drop of runoff. That's why we've captured 42% over the 19% that exists. So what we're doing is on one of the plans, I can't remember which one. I think it may be the drainage plan. We're actually showing where they're getting formal treatment, where they're getting informal treatment, and identifying what the disconnected is. And so that plan will show that as to address that comment.
And then rim and invert elevations, I'm assuming you can provide those pretty easily.
Yeah, we provide the rim elevations. We usually, our approach, and apparently tie and bonds are different there. We provide the rim and invert elevations on the site plan. I think it is. I'd have to. I've got the plan and see it. But we do show it, and we try to only show it in one place, because if you start showing it in multiple places and one of them is wrong or there's a conflict, then they always wonder. So we showed it in one place. But wherever we show it, we're going to add the pipe lengths and slopes, because we do have the inverts on them already. Looks like, yeah, it's actually on the proposed development plan. So we show the diameter, we show the rim elevations, we just don't show the lengths and slopes. But we have already added those, I think, on the plan.
Okay. Comments 13 and 14 here, the stone crushed bedding.
Yeah, we added to our detail the 6 inches of crushed bedding underneath the drainage structures, and we have created a cross section of that detention. I mean that vegetated depression.
And then in conversations with Ty and Bond, they were really concerned that there was no filter course being provided. They referred to a 12-inch filter course typically being provided.
Yeah, the detail that we submitted for this, the filter course that they suggest is typically for porous pavement and porous concrete. And these are pervious pavers, which are a little bit different animal. And based on the manufacturer's specs, when you have low or no permeability, which is the case we have, they recommend this pea gravel first, which is what we've spec'd, and then other gravel down below it, because if that soil gets saturated, then it's not structurally as sound. And so that's, you know, we could show, you know, we did the detail that we did was based on the actual manufacturer's detail for that situation.
I think the remaining comments can be addressed at a later time. I guess I just kind of close my questions with saying that, you know, I feel the application is complete, but based on the comments from Ty and Bond and some of the revisions that are discussed in my review letter and have been discussed tonight, I'm just not sure we're at a place where, without revised plan and information, where a decision would be appropriate. But that's my opinion.
Okay, but we can certainly proceed and open the public hearing.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, thank you. So, there are no waiver requests.
No.
So
no
this
waiver
application, all of the required documents have been submitted. So if somebody would like to make a motion to accept this application as complete.
So moved.
Motion has been made, and if somebody would second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, does any member of the public want to comment?
Excuse me, Jim Roulard. I just want to express thanks to Ms. Vaughn for having a concern for trees. And there is an option for that tree that might not conform to the every 30 feet, or is it yards? It'll sound odd, but the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art in North Adams in 1999 planted they erected 6 upside-down trees in their courtyard. And I think they're in their 2nd generation now of trees, because after a certain point you have to remove the trees because they start to curl up. So it's an option, is all I'm saying. If you put an upside-down
Yeah.
tree, it would probably cost, it might be cost prohibitive to maintain that tree.
So I had it, yeah.
It's an option. Okay.
I had an alternative idea to that, and that I do like trees. I had an alternative idea, because I'm concerned about, you know, getting as many trees as we can.
I am too.
And part of it is about covering pavement and just making it more pleasant to be in parking lots. So instead of strictly adhering to this one covers this section and that does, couldn't we just take that tree and, you know, put 2 opposite instead of 1? You know, it won't technically cover everything, but at least we'll get the tree covering parking space.
And they would upside down. I mean, one
And they don't have to be upside down.
May I ask a question? What is an upside-down tree? Is it actually upside down?
They chose sugar maples.
Is it roots are up in the air and the branches are
They're
below?
in a tub. The roots are in a tub, and the whole tree is upside down.
Okay.
Yeah.
See? So, yeah.
It's a curious, you'd get a lot of visitors to come see the only upside-down tree in Wolfeboro.
I have no idea what it costs to remove the tree when you judge that it needs to be removed. The Clark Museum at Williams College was the original sponsor of this program in 1999, and the second generation of trees are going to be planted on the Clark Museum campus there.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, hi.
Deborah, whoa, sorry, trying to lower it. Deborah Kendrick, 237 Soul Road, across the street up there. I did want to comment on the nighttime activity. There really is no nighttime activity. Can everybody hear me? This is like in my face. So we really don't have any concerns about the evening activities at the marina. The marina's been great neighbors to us, and in turn, we're trying to be good neighbors back. My really only concern is about the driveway. If it was going to be for patrons only, I think I really wouldn't have too much concern, because like I said, we really don't have lights coming in at night. Every once in a while, there's an evening visitor, maybe on Friday evenings, we have late arrivals, but that's really the only, it's not even an issue. But if the driveway is going to be used by the oil delivery and the septic folks and the trash pickup, I think that is one of two of my concerns. The other concern about the driveway is that people will park their cars anywhere. If you've come down Sewell Road on the weekend, people will put their cars anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's grass, mulch, pavement. So what happens on the weekends is right there where the driveway is planned for, there are cars lining both sides of the street. So I'm concerned. I actually have this same exact situation back at home where I live in Massachusetts. We have a high school across the street, and parents park up and down the road everywhere they can. And when we're leaving our development, we can't see to get out onto the main road. So my concern is when people are coming out of the driveway and there are cars parked on both sides of the street, how are they going to be exiting, knowing if there's cars coming or not, because they're going to be blocked. So I don't know if I would recommend maybe some street signs. We have tried that back at home in Massachusetts, and people pretty much ignore them, but I don't know what else to say about that. But if there are cars parked there, this is a much narrower, as Jim mentioned. Well, Jim didn't mention that it was narrower, but he said it was 22 feet. The current exit and entrance is probably as wide as this room. And so people have quite a view to know if there's, an oncoming traffic or cars. So I hope that all made sense.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to comment? Hey, Jim, would you respond to that?
I'll just...
Are there any there are no parking signs?
I don't think there are any no parking signs out there. I will say that obviously, as I mentioned before, this will really be formalized. Right now, if you go down there, as she just said, the entrance in it's steep and it's wide and it's just a sort of a sea of pavement. Now this is going to be, parking lots and lines, and it will be formalized, and you won't be mixing, negative lift work and things like that. So I think that there's going to be more parking available, even though it's the same number of parking spaces, by permit. There's going to be more available, so hopefully that will minimize the parking along Sewell Road that hopefully shouldn't occur now. I know that historically that, before the boat storage area was done, there was a lot more activity on the site, and I think that that's been reduced. Certainly, the folks that are here from Goodhue who are there on the actual day-to-day basis could maybe answer or speak to some of that more specifically. I don't know about septic vehicles. I mean, this is on town sewer and water, so I don't know if they come and pump boats. It's nothing that I'm aware of. They have a fuel oil tank, gasoline tank. Yeah, Steve could again speak to this.
She's absolutely right about the parking and some of the other issues. And one of the reasons why we're making this investment is to try and make that better. Because the development that we have will no longer be fueling the Winnie Bell at the end of our dock. You'll notice that there's a breakwater there, and if that's approved, that'll put an end to that large boat fueling there, which they did at least once a week, trying to be good neighbors to the Wolfeboro Inn, as well as the septic. So there'll be no diesel fuel trucks going down there in the future, and there will be no septic truck going down there in the future as well. It may take us just a little bit even this year, because we understand your position and we want to be good neighbors. So we're trying to put an end to that just as soon as we can. But this new development will certainly make parking a whole lot more efficient and a whole lot better. All of that huge area that you correctly categorized as wide as this building, where the entrance is now going to be converted by extrapolation into parking spots. And they'll be much better defined and easier for us to control. There's been a lot of washout over the years there. It is an old facility, and this upgrade is going to make it so much better and so much more presentable and so much easier for cars to park. So, is it going to eliminate parking on the street? I don't know the answer to that. I know that we have called the police at times about that, but it's not illegal to park on the street, which is why we don't put no parking signs there. We don't have the ability to. We did get the permission to put no parking in front of our building and on the right-hand side going down Sewell Road, away from our storage building, on both sides. I don't know that we can control the parking there any more than the Wolfeboro Inn can down a little bit further. We would love to be able to do that. At times when we've had overflow last year, we experimented with putting a couple of valet parkers out there in order to make it better, and during very peak times it worked very nicely. So we're looking forward to being able to do that. Parking is a real concern for us because of the growing nature of the business. We're aware of it. We're investing a lot here in order to make it better, and we're willing to work with all of our neighbors to make the situation improved.
Thank you.
I'm Brent Pratt again with Goodhue and Hawkins, and I just want to thank you for hearing this tonight. The primary thing here, I think the traffic situation and the whole situation for our neighbors is going to be greatly improved because of the direct access between the boat storage building and the water, putting the boat ramp and the negative lift on the same side, keeping all of the customers on the area where this new parking field is, and keeping the boat, the facility, and everything to run the facility on the other side. And it really is, this whole thing is going to be very expensive, but it's driven by safety. And I think it's going to be safer for people coming up and down Sewell Road, our neighbors, everybody involved is going to benefit by the safety of what's going on here. So thank you very much for tonight.
Thank you. Yes.
So you have a septic on boats that use your marina? People have septic on their boats that use the marina?
Yeah, just to make a difference here, the Winnie Bell does cruises during the week, and on Friday morning, they get their holding tank pumped out at Goodhue and Hawkins at the end of that long pier that they'll no longer be able to do once that breakwater is in. And we don't want it being done anyway. We have a state-approved boat pump-out station right here. And it's hooked into town sewage. So boats that need to be pumped out, whether they be at our marina or anybody in the lake that wants to get rid of their effluents, can come there and pump out. But it will never be done from the parking lot side. It'll all be done from the shop side, right where we located there to the right of the ramp.
And it goes directly into our sewer system. So
Goes directly into, well, it goes directly into a macerator in our building and then pumped up to the sewage system.
Okay, so thank you for that. The fuel system, is that going to be modernized at all down there? Or are you changing the situation where the tanks are or that supply the fuel for the gas pump?
I mean, it's a pretty modern system.
Okay.
You know, it meets all the standards, and we never had a problem with it. We will be changing some of the piping and dispenser situation as we move that gas dock, as the whole dock situation pivots over to make use of, because right now, the gas dock comes right out where the negative lift will go. So when we pivot all of the docks around, we'll have to put new superstructure in there.
Thank you.
it's amazing the things you learn when you come to these meetings, isn't it?
Spencer Henry out with Goodhue and Hawkins. Just to clarify one point, we will continue to need fuel to be filled. We're not moving our tanks. So the size of the truck that can get in and out will shrink because of the change that we're making to the driveway. We can't have an 18-wheel tanker make that turn. But the fill will be in the same place. They don't have hoses that can come from the road or from the other side of our operation. So we'll likely have a smaller fuel truck coming on site. But I just wanted to make that clarification. We can eliminate the septic. We can eliminate trash removal. Doesn't happen there anyway. Our dumpster's on the other side of the road. But we will still need fuel to fill the tank there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me see. Open public hearing. Now we have to.
Brad may have a comment.
I got one question for Jim, if I could, Jim. I might have missed it earlier in your presentation. You have 3 deep sump catch basins that have the hoods on them there. And as I'm getting older here, my glasses aren't strong enough to read the small plan to point out which ones they are on there. So if you could help me out with where those 3 are located.
My glasses are no better than yours, so I'm going to go see if I...
Okay.
I can point them out too if you'd like me to.
Yeah, they are here, there, and there. Those are all.
All right, still, okay. The one down by the existing boat ramp, is that an existing catch basin?
This is an existing one, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Does that have a hood on that one now, or?
The existing catch basin down here have a
You know, it's like a baffle inside to protect against any oil contamination, something like that, going through and getting out in the lake. Yeah.
Yeah, so the inlet for that is actually on the opposite side of the road, and then there's treatment swales. I don't know if we have yeah, those treatment swales there.
Right.
That all funnels into that catch basin and then goes down. So it's pre-treated there.
This is not a catch basin, that's just a...
Okay, so it's not an open top. Okay, all right. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, anything else, folks? All right, Matt, it seems like Jim did address many of the conditions.
I think he's addressed many of the issues. I do think that there are revisions that need to be made to the plans and the materials, and I am personally uncomfortable with the decision being made tonight.
You are personally comfortable?
Uncomfortable with the decision being made this evening. However, in the event that a continuation is sought, I think in the interest of the expected caseload for June, in addition to the scope of what's being requested, I know this may be unpopular, but I would request a continuation to the work session rather than the June meeting.
What exactly are you still feeling is outstanding?
Well, I think the tie and bond comments haven't been addressed, and there are significant enough revisions requested through the planner review as well that, I mean, the conditional approval will be 50 items long. I'm not comfortable with that.
Is that an exaggeration or an actual number?
I think there would probably be about 40 to 45 changes requested, I think, as part of the planner review.
I don't know if there'd be that many, but I mean, there's, most of the plans will have, you know, one or two revisions on them, so there's, you know, I mean, there'll be, no question there'll be plans there, whether there'll be 25 or 30 or 40, you know.
When's our next work session?
16th of May.
16th.
16th of May?
Can you have it done by the 16th?
Yeah, we could have it done. I mean, all of the tie and bond comments, other than writing the letter, have been done to the plans. But it wasn't going to be fair to give them to tie and bond or to share them with you tonight with nobody having a chance to react to them.
Yes, right.
So...
If the applicant is comfortable with waiting until the 16th, I guess I am too.
Right, is that how, you folks okay?
I mean,
think
if I was just going to say that the one important thing, and I'm pleased to hear that if you're comfortable doing it, is our extended approval that was granted in 2015 grants the current approval that we have is good until May 17th. So if you meet with us on the 16th and we get this approval, we don't care if the other one goes.
Okay,
For transparency, I spoke to Jim about this before the meeting, just because the timing I think is critical here. So.
Okay, I think that's probably the best thing for.
I also think if we ask T and Bond to review something and they give us a long list of items and you address them to us, they should have that feedback in plan to let us know that they're satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, typically what we've done before when Ty and Bond has done one is we've responded, given them the plans and a letter of response, and then they've come back with a second letter saying all the issues are taken care of.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Or it's like one of them is they would have hatched the thing differently. I'm going to, you know, that's not a technical thing, and my comment is going to be, there's no accounting for taste, you know.
Okay, so if the 16th will work for you, then I think that's probably the best for the process.
Yes, we'll have everything done. You know, we'd love to have you approve it tonight, but if you're not comfortable with that, then...
Okay, well, we'll put it first on the agenda for the 16th.
Okay.
Okay. That okay with everybody? So would somebody be willing to make a motion to table this and continue until May 16th?
May 16th, so moved.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. This is very good presentation, very complete, and we thank you very much for your
Thank you
patience.
for your late hour.
I just have to quickly read a couple items. Oh, this isn't into the record. Depot Square Condominium Association, 61 Central Avenue for site plan revocation, and Depot Square Condominium Association, 61 Central Avenue, tax map 217-47, case 2017-12, and the case of 2017-11. The second one is for subdivision revocation. These will be continued until June 6, 2017. And would somebody be willing to make a motion to that effect, please? Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye opposed? Okay. How about if the rest of the items that we need to do anything else tonight?
We don't have to do anything else tonight.
Unless you folks are on such a roll that you want to keep going.
Late enough, I can keep going.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Is there a,
Kathy,
Yes.
Kathy,
I move that we adjourn.
Really?
Kathy,
Oh, my,
motion to adjourn?
oh, okay, I'm sorry, motion to adjourn.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.